opinions expressed by talk show hosts, callers, or guests on the Rob Taylor Report do not necessarily represent the opinions of the hosting platform, subsidiaries, sponsors, or possibly anyone else on the planet or the known universe. From the tinfoil and lead-lined broadcast bunker on the beautiful southern coast of Oregon, it's the Rob Taylor Report. So strap yourself in. Your weekly political therapy session is about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is, the nearly famous Rob Taylor.
Hey, Coos County. Thank you for joining me. I want to thank all of you who are joining me, Coos County, Oregon, and beyond. I want to let you know that we will be playing another Where's 3H Tree service. We're going to be doing that a little bit later in the show. Probably about 3 o'clock we'll start that. I know at 3 o'clock we'll start that. I've got a wonderful guest coming on at 3 o'clock, Ashley Hicks. She's running against David Brock Smith in Senate District 1, and we're going to be talking about a recall that they just tried to pull on the vice chair of the Douglas County Republican Party, and it was just dirty politics from beginning to end. And we'll be talking about that at 3 o'clock because it was just absolutely just unbelievable what the Republican establishment is doing. And it's something I've been watching for a long time. If you've been watching the last couple of podcasts, we've talked about it. And, you know, you all know that the Democrats are dirtbags, so we really don't have to go into too much of why the Democrats are dirtbags. They're commie Marxists, and we will be discussing their issues going down the road. But I think there's some laundry that dirty laundry that we need to deal with the local Republicans. But that's happening in the second hour. In the first hour, my guest still hasn't popped on. I haven't received an email from him or anything. I was hoping maybe if he was going to be late, he would send me a text message. But apparently he's either having trouble connecting or he just can't get onto the show. I'm not sure what's happening, but that's okay. He wrote an excellent article. And in fact, I have him on right now. And so I just want to let you all know that we're going to be discussing Measure 110, and we're going to be discussing property rights because I think that's part of the discussion that's missing. I think one of the greater elements that has happened in Coos County is the fact that we keep talking about either full-on prohibition. We either talk about full-on prohibition where we're going to lock people up. I mean, Donald Trump in his remarks on the speech the other night said he wants to execute all drug dealers. And I think that's an extreme I'm not willing to take. I think it's a bad idea. But then you've got the do no harm crowd who want to have safe injection rooms. They want to provide drugs to these people. They want to give out crack pipes. And I think this is a bad idea if it's done with my tax dollars. And so when I was sent this article by a friend, and it was written by Marc Thornton, and he's a senior fellow at the Mises Institute. And the name of the article, or the title of the article, is called The Oregon Problem. It's not drugs, it's the socialistic political culture. And any one of you who lives here in Oregon, you know that's what we're dealing with in Oregon. It's a socialistic culture that we have that's really pressing down upon us. I think Oregon is sometimes the trial state for full-on American Marxism that's coming down the road. So joining me right now from the Mises Institute is Dr. Marc Thornton. Marc, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm here live at the Mises Institute. It's great to be on your program. I think this is a very important issue. You know, my podcast is called Minor Issues, but in reality, we're dealing with a lot of issues that the mainstream media thinks are minor or irrelevant or don't make any sense, but really hit at the heart of the matter. And I think that the opinions and the issues and the statistics that I've seen relating to Oregon and this issue means it's a really big issue.
Yes.
With the people out there, and you know, similar problems in other states, and the problems seem to be spreading. I mean, these are issues that simply didn't exist except in a couple of very isolated ghetto areas in the United States when I was growing up, and now it's a common scene in some of America's great states, great cities around the country, places that were not long ago considered utopias.
Yeah.
And I think Oregon was in that category, that just a few decades ago people considered it kind of a utopian type of society, and now look what's come of it. So great to be here with you.
And it's great to have you. I woke up at 3 o'clock last night, and I started thinking of all the things I was going to ask you and what I wanted to talk about. And then, darn it, I couldn't get back to sleep because the issue, you won't believe how much this issue is affecting everyday citizens here. In fact, we are now looking at the development of, and I don't want to call it vigilantism, but the fact that the lawlessness that's going on because no one is taking care of the property crimes and the vandalism that's happening throughout our county here in Coos County. And let me tell you how far off we are on the Southern Oregon coast. Just to get to my little city of Bandon, you have to go an hour past a town called Remote. Okay, so we're way out here in the middle of nowhere, and yet we have crime in our county that's just unbelievable, and it's due to Measure 110, which I did not support, ironically, because I am for the end of the drug prohibition. I've been fighting the drug war for a long time, and not because I support anyone doing drugs. I'm completely would tell anyone that's a bad idea who's thinking of doing drugs. But I saw a long time ago, I was an advisor for the Gary Johnson administration in New Mexico. And, during his second term, I was one of the people working with him to bring him out to start talking about these issues, because we were seeing it in New Mexico where the extreme prohibitionists were pushing one way, but the fact was it just wasn't working. I was in a neighborhood where crack dealers ruled the neighborhood, and it wasn't any better than what we have now. But now we've gone to the exact opposite because of Measure 110. They have decriminalized drugs, which is far different than legalizing drugs, and that's why we didn't support it. And in your article, I thought you did an excellent job of bringing out the fact that if you're going to have the end of drug prohibition, you have to have the protection of people and property. That is an utmost fact with any society. And so I love that in your article.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a substitute, and there has to be rules. Private property is a system of rules where my property is my property. I get to do with it what I want. Your property is your property. You get to do it with what you want, and there's well-established rules of what we can do and how we can do it. Who we allow to use our property, how we use our property. I mean, that's a set of legal doctrines that date back for hundreds and hundreds of years. And government, slips in between that system. It carves out a little realm of property for itself, and it can do whatever it wants, as long as the voters will go along with it. And that's where the problem comes in, because individuals who own property and who have an interest in being good caretakers of the property and getting the most out of that property aren't there. And so the public servants who are supposed to be serving the voters and the citizens, they have to act as a substitute. I think it's important to point out, and it's very much related to this point, is that with drug legalization, with true drug legalization that you spoke of, and how different that it is than decriminalization is that with drug legalization, the types of drugs that would be produced, distributed, and consumed, who would be making them, who would be distributed in them, who would be selling them, who could they be sold to, i.e., not minors, would be radically different. Okay, so pharmaceutical companies, drug companies would be making these products. They would be under, legal constraints of being sued for wrongful death, for, misadvertising their products, product quality. They would be under competitive threat from other producers. They could go out of business, or they could make a lot of money. Either way, but it's entirely different than in a black market where nobody knows what anybody else is doing, where the only incentive on the part of drug producers and distributors is to come up with the craziest, most potent, often the most lethal drugs possible. So, we've gone from a country where people drank beer and smoked pot, and there were a large number of heroin addicts in cities like San Francisco and New York City, to a country that's overrun with, crystal meth, fentanyl. Right now the black tar heroin from Mexico is actually relatively one of the safer drugs.
Right.
It's produced in a primitive commercial-like fashion. And of course, under drug prohibition, the potency of pot went from like 0.5% up to way more than 10%. So you got just an extreme reaction as a result of drug prohibition, and the drugs just got worse and worse and worse, more addictive, more dangerous, more deadly. And of course, now we're seeing people dying from fentanyl all over the place. And then, of course, we've had several decades of people dying in large numbers from prescription opiate drugs and fake prescription opiate drugs. So the problem under government stewardship has gotten way out of control. It's gotten much, much worse. And we've made precious little progress. Now, when I heard that Oregon had decriminalized all drugs, I thought, well, I was hopeful, that somebody had said, hey, this is working for cannabis. Maybe it'll work for some of these other drugs. And it has, similar experiments in Portugal, in Spain, a few other countries that have decriminalized other drugs have been much more successful.
One of the things that you just mentioned is that under a legalization scenario, because what we've done in Oregon, and I want to differentiate to people, that decriminalization means that for certain large amounts of drugs, for dealing drugs, you're still going to go to jail. And for people who are using low-level amounts of drugs, who are caught with those personal use drugs, they're supposed to get $100 fine. And they get a number. You can call the number and get help if you want help. The help really isn't there. They haven't spent a lot of the money to provide help in many areas, especially in the rural areas. And that to me was the bigger problem, is that under legalization, as you were saying, the government would regulate the supply. And until we get a handle on the supply, until we get more commercialized, regulated products, that decriminalization would never work, just for the scenario you set up. And people are always going to say that, well, yes, drugs will be safer, but people are going to die of drugs. People die of smoking cigarettes. People die of alcohol right now. Those are drugs. Those are legal. In fact, I'm sitting here drinking sweet tea, and that's a refined white powder that I consume every day. And there are people out there, hundreds of thousands across the globe, who die of diabetes and other diseases because of sugar. And so I believe that it's still better to have these products legalized and people choosing to use them, knowing the risk, die, instead of what we have here in Coos County, where, and this happens all over the United States, is that the gangs, the criminals, control the production. They control the supply of where it's delivered, who's going to sell it, how it's going to be sold, and they control that through violence. And I think that one person, one mother, one father, one child who dies, who's not using drug, who's not involved with drug use, is 10, 100 times worse than people who are going to die, who are going to use legal cocaine, who are going to use legal heroin under our scenario, because I would call it our scenario, because I think you and I are both in the same book of wanting to legalize it. We just don't want to see what's happening right now, where people, and the government does it here, they excuse the criminal activity by saying, well, they're on drugs, so there's nothing we can do about it. You agree with that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the potential for what economists call negative externalities, where my behavior could be internalized and I face all the cost of my behavior. But if my behavior negatively affects my neighbors, passersby, and so forth, that's the big problem. And property rights does a great job of preventing people from imposing costs on innocent third parties. And so what, the rule of law is supposed to prevent people from imposing their externalities on other people. But with the government in charge of so much public resources, so much public land, the streets, the sidewalks, government property of all sorts, the schools, it becomes a really big problem if government itself doesn't find some way of minimizing my ability to have a negative effect on my neighbors or have a negative effect on just the population in general. And I see that's really what's happening in Oregon. And it really is a matter of policy, but it turns out, I think, that a lot of the public services that most cities and counties and states have, and Oregon certainly has, programs to protect children and programs to help the homeless, programs for the mentally ill. But I've learned more recently, since I wrote that article, that most of the public institutions in Oregon have become woke along with the population, and they're simply not either able or willing to or instructed to do what a lot of other public bureaucracies do in other states under similar circumstances. And I understand that the police out there are very frustrated with this new rule, and that the $100 fine, nobody collects it, nobody calls the number, and that when people reach out for public assistance for rehabilitation services or child protection services, that nobody's answering the phone, or if they do answer, they're doing nothing about it. And I'm afraid that as I described in the article, and I've learned that the problem is actually much worse than I first suspected, is that the ideological problem in Oregon is much worse. I think of Oregon as more of a rural state, cutting trees. We cut trees here in Alabama too. It's a big industry, farming, those kind of things. But apparently the ideological basis in the state has changed for whatever reason, and the policy and the ideology now apparently permeates a majority of the voting class, which tends to be concentrated in urban areas, as well as the political class of politicians and bureaucrats. And that really, has a big influence on the rules that are enforced, how they're enforced, whether or not they're going to be enforced. And when you get to a situation where you have widespread homelessness, and you have widespread open public drug use and abuse, especially involving children, that indicates to me that it's, the problem of drug addiction has gone way, way beyond that, and it's having a very detrimental effect in the state, and I think it's probably having a detrimental effect on business and employment. Outside employers who get to choose from 50 states are going to think twice about locating new facilities in the state of Oregon. And of course, similar things are true in Central America where this drug trade comes up. It's hurt jobs. It hurts jobs everywhere it goes. There's a few jobs in the black market, and there's enforcers, mafia type people jobs, but they're not breadwinner, family oriented jobs. And I got to think that that's going to have a further negative effect for the people of Oregon when employers are looking around. They're not already in Oregon. They're looking for a new home, whether that's for production, raw material extraction, distribution, assembly facilities. You could well imagine, given the diversity of climate and natural resources in the state, that a lot of people would be attracted to that for its natural conditions. And I consider this ideological problem and this policy problem not a natural condition at all, but a purely man-made problem of the human mind that's turned away from the traditional institutions that have benefited humanity over the last several hundred years.
And you couldn't be more correct. And as someone who, and they'll call me a conspiracy theorist, I believe that the Oregon government, which is run by extreme leftists from the Democrat Party, that they are using this drug decriminalization to destroy the rights of the property owner. And here's the storyline that goes out now, Dr. Thornton,
okay,
is that they will tell you people they are losing their houses, then they get drug addicted, and then we have to deal with that problem by helping these homeless, and they're calling them the homeless. And I hear this in my own county by people who get up and try to put that narrative forward, and I always get up and I correct them. I say, no, the story isn't that they lost their house, then they became a drug addict. I said they became a drug addict, they lost their job, then they lost their house, And now they're living on the street, and you people want the rest of us to house these people by raising our taxes and taking up more and more land that's in the private market, putting it into the hands of government to build these shelters for these people. And I believe that it's a way to slowly erode our property rights. And that's what I see happening now. And it's happening from the top down. I mean, it's happening at the governor's office, who has declared several emergencies on what she calls homelessness. And I have to say that the problem isn't homelessness. The problem is lawlessness once again. And I go back to the fact that if you gave one of these meth heads on the street today a house, it wouldn't take but maybe 3 weeks before they have destroyed the house. It would become just like the shopping carts and the tarps that they live in the streets or on the sidewalks or on the front of the business. And you can't take someone who's in a chaotic state and give them a brand new house at the expense of the taxpayer and the property owner, because all you're doing is cutting into the taxpayer and the property owner, so that it actually creates more homeless, because many people are barely able to survive right now. So that's why I think decriminalization is the way they went, to not really because they love the addict and they care for the addict, but I think they just hate property. And anyone who knows Marx, Karl Marx was asked once, what is communism? And he said the abolition of private property. And that's what we're looking at today in Oregon.
Yes, and I just directed a master's thesis that looked at the housing situation in the western states, Washington, Oregon, and California. In particular, California, but it applies to all 3 states. And in all 3 states, the government wants to restrict the ability of property owners to build housing.
Yes.
And so in these 3 states, I know Portland, Seattle, all the major metropolitan areas of California, housing is very, very expensive. And basically the political class in the state has made the use of private property or public property, it's taken that off of the board with respect to creating houses. So what you're saying about the political class wanting to make the problem worse, I mean, they could just be stupid.
They could be, but
I think it's more of their Marxist orientation, their interest in controlling everything and micromanaging everything as if they were running some bureaucracy or some business. And so they've artificially driven up the price of housing in San Francisco, in the Bay Area, Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, Portland, Seattle, all of these places. They've greatly restricted where you can build a house.
right.
And so housing is very, very expensive. So if you get into any kind of trouble, like this inflation that the Fed has given us the last couple of years, I've seen stories all over the country, but particularly on the West Coast, where people are exasperated. They're working a full-time job, and the Fed has basically caused prices to rise so much that they can't afford their apartment. They can't afford to make their mortgage payment. They can't afford to move. There's no place for them to go. So that would reinforce your point about the politicians seemingly and actively working to make the problem worse,
Yes.
not better.
Yes, absolutely. And, unlike your state and everything that is east of the Mississippi, all the states that are west of the Mississippi, Nevada, New Mexico, California, Washington, Oregon itself, 54% of it is owned by the federal government. 54% of it. And most of it is forest land. It's vacant land. And that right there in itself is part of the problem, because we're not being able to utilize that land for development. And then you add on the high cost of development fees that could be lowered without raising taxes. You look at the regulations such as the smart cities, the smart grid regulations that Oregon has put on development. You can get rid of that without raising taxes. Things like land use laws. Oregon is the only state in the entire nation that has centralized planning and zoning through the Oregon Development Council, our Council on Development and Conservation. And it's complete socialized planning and zoning. I would get rid of that entire council. I would let it go to the counties. Urban growth boundaries that they have created is that's just an imaginary line to destroy the development of things. And you take all those into a contributing factor, but yet they're not looking at that up in Salem with the governor or the legislature that's controlled by the Democrats. They're not looking at changing those. Right now, they're talking about 12 different taxes to tax us, the producers, instead of doing stuff that would actually encourage development. And they say they want to develop 36,000 houses a year. They're never going to be able to meet this, but that's their goal. And the only way that they're going to do it without changing the things that I suggested is by taking it from those of us who produce. And it's a scary proposition, because it's just going to destroy rural Oregon. And I believe that is exactly their intent, to get us all into the major cities so that they can use this for their playgrounds. I don't know. What do you think on that situation?
Well, I mean, all the evidence indicates that is the case. And it's a general problem. I mean, government is driving up the cost of everything, whether it's the Federal Reserve creating money out of thin air, or state, county, and local bureaucrats imposing all sorts of restrictive covenants and regulations and requirements and paper filing. In this master's thesis, I noted that the student found that the government paper red tape cost of producing a condominium in Southern California was greater than what it would cost you to buy a completed condominium here in the state of Alabama. And sure, but we're not talking about the land, the cost of the land. So this is just construction, and the construction materials can't be that much different. So it gives you some idea about what the paper red tape cost that states and local governments can impose, and then the restrictive covenants that the environmental mindset wants to impose, so we don't cut down trees, and we have this and we have that, and all this open land, yada, yada, yada. But if you do that, that means there's no land to build houses and schools and businesses and retail and so forth. And I know Portland, is highly geographically constrained.
Yes.
So, and then you throw the environmental concerns on top of that. And it's a recipe for economic disaster. And I know that this has been going on for quite some time. I've heard the story from friends and relatives that go back 25 years or more. So this is not new. They're just continuing on their drive towards control. And I think you're right. They do want to control people. They want to. They don't like people out in rural areas. They don't like people who go to church.
Right.
Oregon is a state where people are not religiously affiliated. The only states that have lower religious affiliations are in the communist states of New England, and that works against freedom and property rights and independence. because people tend to have a more socialistic mindset. They tend to be more indoctrinated in the public schools. And so the situation can become ideologically, which is what they want, ideologically, it weakens you and makes you much more willing to go along. And the ultimate weaklings in society, and the most unfortunates, are these drug addicts and alcoholics who have no will really left of their own, and they become a pawn in this whole process. They actually, it sounds to me, they almost become like a weapon that the politicians are using to harm the productive class in society, the people who go to work, the people who own businesses, the people who have to make payroll, the people who have to satisfy the customer somehow or another. This is all coming down, and of course, as you suggest, their only solution, their only go-to solution is, we're going to tax you more, we're going to hire more people to work for government, and we're going to screw up even more people's lives in the process.
Right.
So if you don't turn that all around, the vitality of the state will just float downriver and out to the sea.
One of the things that people often confuse libertarianism with is anarchy. They assume that if you're a libertarian, you're an Ayn Rand objectivist, that you're a conservative, that somehow that many ways that we talk about laissez-faire markets. They immediately equate that with anarchy. But the thing is that we still, the reason we have government is to protect the person and the property. Building streets and bridges and all the other things they do, that's ancillary to the main goal of protecting the person and the property from enemies, foreign and domestic. And one of the things that people will tell me, well, Rob, you're a libertarian. You must think that these druggies that are out on the street that have no home due to the fault of their own, with or without these regulations, that you don't want to tell these people they can't sleep on the sidewalk. You don't want to tell these people that they can't sleep in the park. You don't actually want to get them out of the residential areas where they're building their campsites. And I tell them, yeah, actually I do. And I believe that when government, the collective, and I believe in the smallest collective that we can have and still survive as a society, that in the collective, when we build sidewalks, they're for walking. When we build roads, they're for roads. When we build residential areas, we have to protect those residential areas. And in fact, I would argue that what they're talking about is the commons. And that's the tragedy of the commons, is that if nobody takes responsibility for it because we all own it, then this is what we're going to get, the real anarchy that we're seeing in many cities and streets. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, I mean it's the chaos.
The chaos.
The chaos. There's lots of different types of libertarians. There's lots of different Republicans, and there's obviously a lot of different types of Democrats. But in general, all libertarians believe in the free society, and it's just a matter of how much government you have, how little government you have, and what it does. And libertarians agree that there has to be protection for property rights, against crime, violence, and invasion. So there's some generally accepted things about libertarianism. And, for the most part, I live my life without really any government intervention to speak of. I mean, when I go to the grocery store, there's, the government isn't overlooking that sort of transaction. So we go about our lives generally in a free society, and that's what made America great to begin with, is that freedom brings along with it the opportunities for individuals to succeed in life, to do better, to do the things that they really wanted to do. And it's the state and massive government interventions which basically limit people. They tell them, you can't do this job, and no, you've got to be in school until you're 18, and you're demanded to do a lot of things. You're prevented from doing a lot of things. You have to get a license to do things. You have to pay taxes on your income, your investments. You have to pay taxes when you buy stuff. I mean, so we become a very heavy-handed government in this country. We're much less free, but our freedom, and nobody denies this, our freedom is what allowed Americans to become so prosperous and to become the reason why so many people around the world want to come to the United States. I just talked to a young lady yesterday from China, and she was telling me about her life growing up in China and how she always wanted to come to the United States, where she would have opportunities. Not that she was going to be given anything, but that she could do more or less what she wanted to do, and given an opportunity to succeed or fail. And so that's really the key to our success in these numbskulls in government and socialist ideologues in the media, in particular, the mainstream media, have been able to control our education and our ideology, and they've basically turned that story upside down so that the entrepreneur is all of a sudden always the bad guy who's destroying the planet. But in reality, the entrepreneur is providing people with jobs, providing people with goods and services at a competitive price. That's how the system works. And so if you're living a good life, it's really you're living between the seams of government. You're serving your fellow man, and you're being compensated for that. And very often, us lucky ones that are in that position, we don't really get involved with government in much any way. I mean, what protects my house and my car and my health are insurance companies, not the government. And so it's really an ideological problem that we've gotten into. And I don't have an explanation as to why the West Coast states are particularly problematic, or why the New England states are even worse in many respects. When you think of Vermont, and you think of Maine, and you think of Massachusetts, those are very big government states. Of course, they're also still, like many of the Western states, they're still fairly wealthy. A lot of wealth was built up in a similar fashion that happened in Sweden. Sweden was a very free market country, total free trade, total laissez-faire. They became one of the wealthiest countries in the world. And then the socialists got involved and started to break it all down. And so, when it comes to economics, we cannot do away with some of the basics like education, like ideology. We've got to know what makes the country great and what makes it prosperous and what undermines it. And I think, you're pointing out the tragedy of the commons, the tragedies that happen with communal ownership and control of resources is really fundamental, Rob. I think that's really, really fundamental.
The fundamentals that the young people aren't learning today. And that's, yeah. And when Stalin went in to take over Russia, and he pitted the proletariat against the bourgeoisie, there was a state of chaos that he could take advantage of. And that's why the socialists have to create that chaos so that they can create a new class of bourgeoisie and a new class of the proletariat. You were talking about how the homeless are almost, and once again, I don't put everyone in the same category in homeless. I'm talking about the drug addicted criminal are now being exploited as someone who they can use against people who are legitimate property owners, once again, creating that proletariat, creating that bourgeoisie. You are someone, as a senior fellow for the Ludwig von Mises Institute. Ludwig von Mises, I believe he was Australian, right? Or was he?
Austrian.
Austrian, yes. I'm sorry, I meant that. Austrian. And he saw what was happening with the Weimar Republic, where you had the international socialists fighting the national socialists, the fascist against the communist. And in the dichotomy that we're facing today, they try to pit here in America that the communists are on the left, the fascists are on the right, and yet Ludwig von Mises successfully argued in many of his essays that it wasn't that the communists and the fascists were different. They were either international socialists or national socialists on the far left with big government collectivism, or you're on the right, which would be anarchy if you went to the extreme right, but somewhere farther to the right past the socialism and fascism, just before anarchy, you have the libertarian who believes in the free laissez-faire market. And that is really the paradigm that we should be looking at. But yet the news and everyone else keeps talking about the right and left, as in the left is communist and the right is fascist. And I think that paradigm is what needs to be broken when we're talking to each other, which, you see what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. And Mises, Ludwig von Mises, argued strongly against both of them. He lived in Vienna, Austria. He was, considered the last apostle of free market economics. And when the Nazis invaded Austria and Vienna, they went to his office and to his apartment to get him, because he had proven that socialism doesn't work, and they wanted to figure out exactly how they could fix their system because it was very chaotic. Mises, fortunately, had already left. He went to Switzerland, then to Portugal, and finally to the United States. And then after the downfall of communism in the late 1980s, we found all of his papers from his office and from his apartment in a KGB warehouse in Moscow. So the Nazi SS troopers had gone in, taken all of his stuff, brought it back to a Gestapo warehouse headquarters to study it. And then when the Red Army invaded from Russia or from the Soviet Union, they grabbed all of Mises's papers, thinking that he had hidden this secret on how to solve socialism, and they brought it back to Moscow. So they were both, staunch enemies of Mises. They wanted to kill him, and they thought that, he had proven that socialism was impossible and chaotic, and they thought he was just making it up and that he really knew how to make socialism work.
Right.
And, the fact that they were both after him and they both stole his papers indicates that they were really two birds of a feather. They hated each other because one was international, one was nationalist. And, Lenin, who took over Russia during the Russian Revolution, it's his birthday this week. And he would have never, ever come to power had it not been for the US and Canada and France and Great Britain, and even earlier, Germany itself, propping him up in Russia. So the fact that we got communism and Leninism and tens of millions of Russians had to die as a result, we actually helped create Lenin. We actually had troops in Russia during World War I defending the Bolsheviks from the Germans, because the Germans hated Lenin, and they wanted to sack him, and we actually stationed troops to try to protect him. So there's a lot of just crazy things in history that we're never told about. We're always misled in public schools and by the media, and but the truth that you cannot obfuscate, anybody can realize that, you know, a free society is what allows us to be happy and prosperous. It allows us, it gives us opportunities, it opens up things to strive for, and in striving to do better for ourselves, we're actually serving our friends and neighbors and sometimes people around the world. And that's really what makes for a good society, when everybody has the opportunity to serve each other. We all end up being better off, and we all end up being happier as a result. And communism and socialism don't do that. They do the exact opposite. They cause conflict. That's what's happening in Oregon. They're causing conflict on the city streets, in the cities and metropolitan areas of Oregon. And it's a policy that's really, when you look at it rationally, it's designed to fail.
It has to be, because with the natural resources that we have in Oregon, just by accident, we should be a huge supplier of those natural resources all over the this country, all over the world, and we're not using those natural resources because we've been hindered by the federal or state government that's in charge. It's funny, you were talking about how America so many times was helped out the Russians when, you know, up to the point where, you know, we started fighting a Cold War with them. Hoover, under the Hoover administration in 22, he sent huge amounts of food because of the starvation that was going on in Russia right after the revolution, which then kind of led into the Holodomor that happened well before the Holocaust. And it's kind of ironic that, you know, we helped out Russia, and then look what Russia did to Ukraine, you know, a couple of years later. And we could have prevented that as Americans if we, you know, maybe let some of the commies starve. I know it sounds cruel, but it just would have been better if we wouldn't have had that policy of trying to always help them out. One question I had for you, and I'm a huge, I try to read as much as I can, and I'll tell you someone I've never heard about, and you turned me on to him, an essay on economic theory by Richard Cantillon. I may be pronouncing that wrong, but I noticed you were the editor of that book that he had written, and I'm not familiar with it, but I definitely want to hear some about that. How did you, how did you end up editing this book? Because I just read chapter 2, and now I want to read the rest of the book on it, because it does lay out, it seems like, the same kinds of theories that Adam Smith was talking about in The Wealth of Nations. And, you know, of course, all the modern 20th century economists, Milton Friedman, Hayek and such, were also extrapolating. How did you get involved with that?
Well, my teachers, I was just lucky to have some great teachers, including Murray Rothbard, and teachers here at Auburn University who knew of Richard Cantillon, because he wasn't a widely known or discussed figure. He may be the most important person who's ever lived that nobody really has ever heard of. He was Irish. He was a banker. He became one of the world's wealthiest persons in the 1720s. He wrote this manuscript in 1730, and he really explained economic theory, very basic stuff across the entire board of economic analysis, you know, prices, money, inflation, employment, standard of living, growth, location, geography, entrepreneurship. He's the father of entrepreneurship theory. But he was, he was read by Adam Smith. He was read by David Hume, two of the very first classical economists. Very influential, but very mysterious at the same time. He was murdered right after he wrote the manuscript, and it wasn't ever published until 25 years after his death. It was published suspiciously, anonymously, by a publisher that had been out of business for decades. And he was always a man of mystery, but he's really the first person who was able to construct economic theory, such as supply and demand, but really everything else. And he debunked all of the existing notions about money being wealth and just all sorts of nonsensical notions that pervaded economic policy. Like a nation could become rich through protectionism.
Right.
And as much as I dislike modern mainstream economists, even they disagree with that. So we've learned a lot from this guy, and yet nobody really knows much about him. And his economic theory is not widely known as coming from him, but at the same time, it's widely adopted. So if you took up principles of microeconomics, you would see a lot of his influence in there, as well as in economic policy, where he was an advocate for free trade, for free professions, and just that the free market worked on its own. He used the word regulated in the essay 100 times, but he used it to show that markets were well regulated by themselves, not that they required government intervention. Right. So he's really a diamond in the rough. He might be one of the most important thinkers of all time, and he influenced a lot of the great French liberals and English liberals. And by liberals, the European liberal is the libertarian, not the democratic socialist. But the ideas, his name never really stuck with the ideas. And so that's one of my big crusades, is to show that he's really responsible, and he's a lot more important than anybody ever thought. And I'm finding brand new things in this book, even since this translation was published 13 years ago, and I'm still finding brand new, surprising, shocking things in this book that have not yet come to light. So this is a very dynamic thing that we're doing here at the Mises Institute. We're not just shilling a bunch of old ideas for wealthy businessmen. We're supported by individuals, families, family foundations. We don't get money from the government. We don't get money from large government bureaucracies. We don't get money from, the big charitable foundations. We're supported by individuals and entrepreneurs, really. So it's a natural home for the father of entrepreneurship theory to have his work retranslated and provided. We actually provide a free PDF of that book and even an audio version of that book for free on our website. So we want to get the word out, and we work very intensely with college students, with graduate students who are studying to become economists and social scientists. And we work with the general public. We have conferences all around the country. We have scholars affiliated with us in many, many different countries around the world. There are 20 other fledgling Mises Institutes, not a part of us,
Right.
but people who have seen the merit of Ludwig von Mises's work and want to try to do the same thing that we're doing for their country. And so a lot of our work gets translated into other languages. My book on prohibition was just translated into Portuguese, Spanish, Italian. And so there's a big drive, particularly on the part of young people, college students, and business people, or wannabe business people, to find the science behind what makes the system work, the system of free market capitalism.
Maybe we should start going around like they did in the 30s and having the Christian revival. We will have the Mises revivals. Maybe I don't know, but I'm hoping that there's a generation coming up that has seen what the wokeism, the woke generation that we've been dealing with the last, well, probably longer than 4 or 5 years, probably over the last decade or so, that really has gotten strong over the last couple of years. I would like to see a rebellion, young kids rebelling and having this type of revival for this type of free, laissez-faire, free market ideas. And the history for it is there. And I imagine the publisher who published this book, I imagine the reason they did it is because it was almost heresy. You know what I mean? I imagine it was almost a danger to be promoting those ideas because it was undermining monarchies and such. So
the people who published Cantillon's book were the free market leaders within the French Revolution movement. There were socialists and so forth, but the free market clique within the French Revolution is exactly the people who published Cantillon's book. So your guess is right on the mark. And I can tell you that more people are interested in Austrian economics now than ever before. It's like 1,000,000 to 1 from when I was in college. So, and it's all largely young people, people who are in business or want to go into business. And so it's the future leaders of society are really clicked into this, not the political leaders,
right,
but the social leaders of community that realize that there's an important message here. I'm very optimistic. I know it can be very frustrating for you to read the headlines and to read the misinformation out there. But from my perspective, I get to see the students and what they're having to put up with at most universities in the world, and they see a light go off when they see the science of liberty being explained to them. They might not be able to memorize it, but they can see it and they can recognize it. That, private property does seem to work, doesn't it?
It sure does.
The entrepreneur is really not that bad of a guy after all.
Well, I don't think that you will own nothing and be happy crap that's coming out of the World Economic Forum is going to sell to young people. You see a lot of them on iPhones, but that itself is property. Their body itself is their property, and I agree with you. I think we're going to see a whole new revival of this theory going in. Marc, I want to thank you so much for coming on. I hope we can get you back here again at some point in time. If people want to see Marc Thornton's work, go to Mises.org. And anything quick you want to say before I get you out of here?
Yeah, I would encourage that too. There's, no registration, no fees. Our books are dirt cheap. You can get free PDFs. We got daily articles coming out all the time about everything under the sun that's written for regular people. And it's just a great resource. and I think we're winning the battle. But we're very, very small, and I encourage everybody to take a look and join in, because it's very exciting, it's very promising, and it's absolutely essential to save the way of life that we want, and that we deserve. And I think you'll see what we can do and why other people are so excited about it. So, and I'm also on Twitter, Dr. Marc Thornton, and so again, join us. We've got lots of scholars that are on Twitter, and we have lots of scholars who are publishing every day. A lot of young people publishing every day on Mises.org. It's MISES.org. So thank you very much, Rob. I look forward to coming back.
You got it. And I'm going to read the book, the essays on economic theory. I'm going to read that because, like I said, I thought I was pretty well read on stuff like that, and I was just blown away to see a book that I never even knew about, and it goes beyond the wealth of nations. So thank you for doing that. I appreciate you, and you have a good day, okay?
Thanks.
All right. I'm trying to get Matt Holman on the on here, and he's maybe the phone or the connection where he's at is just not good. But if you can see on the screen, I'm trying to get him on here. We're going to try to play another round of Where's 3H Tree Service, but that happens with technology. Wasn't Dr. Marc Thornton just absolutely fabulous? I mean, if you really want to understand why this country was so successful the first 150 years of its existence, why we expanded beyond any realm of imagination. People didn't think that a country could do what America did. This is why we are such an exceptional country, is that we have the ability to basically utilize the free market in a way, the laissez-faire free market, that in the first 150 years of this country, that was the engine of this country. And that's what we need to go back to. Not socialism, not government regulation, not having the government keep growing. We need to get rid of that. Look what the government has done to us today. Look at all the regulations we live under. Look at the $35 trillion that we are in debt. Our grandchildren are in debt. Our great-grandchildren are in debt because of that $35 trillion that we are running as a debt. And the deficit today is, I believe, almost $3 trillion itself. So this is going to do nothing but continue to grow. It's going to get worse unless people like you, people who are interested in the Mises Institute, and they look back at history. There are historical foundations for having a laissez-faire market. And as Dr. Thornton said, you can look at Sweden and look at Britain. When Britain really became a socialist country right after World War II, the country nearly ran itself over a cliff economically. And eventually they decided to get rid of that and come back to some kind of rationale. I'm still trying to get Matt on here. Matt, can you even hear me? No, darn it. I'll tell you what, that's a pain. Nope, he's trying to come back. Okay. Well, and I'm hopefully, I don't know what happened to Ashley. Ashley was supposed to be on the show as well. She was supposed to come on here and talk about what happened in Douglas County with the Douglas County Republicans, and she hasn't. Well, wait a minute. No, I thought I saw Matt Holman pop up here. So we can't start the round until I get a confirmation from Matt. And like I said, it may just be his computer service. That happens. That happens on live TV, live podcast. live TV. Yeah, like that's happening. Once again, he's out of here. So we'll keep trying. Maybe I should give Ashley a call here and see if there's a reason why she's not popping up. That's the nice thing about running a live podcast. If you run into trouble, you can just make a phone call. And here we go. We're going to try calling her again. Oh, no, that's not working. That is very odd. But, I may have to do it without her, which is perfectly okay because, there is a good reason to talk about this stuff. And I have to continue on even if I can or cannot get her. Let's see. We'll go ahead and give her a call here. So, nope, that's not the right number. Now I got her on the phone. Okay, so we'll close that number down and we'll try again here. It's on his end. Okay. All right. Matt has just emailed me. He's having a problem getting connected. So let me give Matt a call and see if we can get him on here, and we'll just get him on the phone. Let's see if we can do that. Yeah, you hear that? Yeah, you couldn't do this on a recorded broadcast. No, this is only something that can happen on a live broadcast. So,
hey Rob.
Hey man, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm not doing too bad. We got you on the air. You're live on the podcast, and I don't know whether you wanted to start the game or not because I didn't know whether you were out or and about.
Oh yeah, we're out and about down here off Ocean Boulevard. If anybody wants to start now, I guess we'll be here for a while.
All right. Well, we're starting it up. We have started the round. There we go. Today's round of Where's 3H Tree Services started. And I'll give out some clues if you don't hear anything back, and just text me or try that link again if you get lucky. Who knows? You know how that goes.
Yeah. You give clues already?
No, I haven't given any clues. If you want to give one out, I'm happy.
I'll give the clue, the Latin word allnus. ALNUS. Yeah. Maybe Google that, and that might lead you in the right direction.
All right. We'll do that. Okay. Well, if anything happens, give me a call back or text me or try to log in. One of those three, okay?
Okay. Sounds good, Rob. Thanks, guys. Come find us. All right. Goodbye.
Bye. I love this. I love this on the podcast. We can just do all this crazy stuff. And I don't need a whole studio to get this done. I mean, my producer, he would have to deal with me on this. And let me go over the rules for Where's 3H Tree Service. The round has started. As you can see, it's on the screen. And here are the rules. When the round starts, the first person to find Matt Holman of 3H Tree Service will win the grand prize. What is our grand prize? $50 today. So if you find Matt Holman, and he's in the Coos Bay area, so that's a good thing. Let's see. The playing area covers all of Coos County. There will only be one winner, and that winner will win the $50 if they find Matt Holman. The round ends when we have a winner and when announced on the Rob Taylor podcast. So there you go. People who are not eligible, family employees of 3H Tree Service, anyone involved with hiring or contracting with 3H Tree Service, anyone who is a known criminal in Coos County or Oregon. Why? Because we're not going to fund your fentanyl habit. You're going to have to pay for that yourself. So the round has started. And remember, 3H Tree Service, they're one of the few tree services in Coos County. They're the only tree service in Coos County that has an arborist license from the Oregon Landscaping Contractors Board. Pretty impressive, Matt. Pretty impressive. 3H strives to stay current in the industry standards to provide better service to its clients. And you can reach Matt Holman at 241-294-1800 or you can catch them out on Facebook under 3H Tree Service. And I actually got someone here. We're going to bring Ashley onto the stage. Hey, Ashley, how you doing?
Hey, how you doing?
Pretty good. I was starting to get scared. You weren't popping up, and I was panicking. Ah!
Well, where I live, we kind of take a gamble with the train. Sometimes they're at Wilbur and old Highway 99. The train will go forward and then back up and then go forward and back up, and you just don't know. It's unpredictable. So there's another route around that locals know about, but you know, you risk catching it on the other side of it too. So it's just it's the fun of chasing the train in a small town.
Well, that's kind of interesting, actually, that we don't see a whole lot of trains here in Coos County. We got a lot of railroad tracks. We just don't see a whole lot of trains coming through anymore.
Yeah, well, we have one, and it runs pretty regularly. The switchyard used to be downtown, and so that would be a big problem for the businesses and just everybody in town, because the train would hold up right there on coming across the river, and so you'd get stuck on the bridge for, I mean, sometimes 40 minutes or something on the Washington Street Bridge. But they several years ago, they changed the switching yard to Wilbur out there on North Highway 99, and so you get stuck on it out there, but it impacts the traffic in a different way, more of in a industrial way rather than everybody downtown, you know. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and I get it. I'm used to spend a lot of summers in Shreveport, Louisiana, and we lived on by the tracks. My aunt did. And we used to jump the trains. We'd actually, as kids, you know, and it was dangerous as all hell, but we would jump the trains to get to places where we wanted to go in either direction. And it was a blast. It was a blast, but dangerous as hell. I don't recommend anyone do it, but
yeah, a friend of mine lost his leg actually from doing something similar to that. But I think he was actually trying to skateboard or something. I think he was trying to hold on to the train. I don't know, something just reckless and
oh yeah,
you know,
well, we
caused injury. But it's wild. You're a little bit more wild. When you're young, you know.
Mm-hmm. I remember one year we went to go get fireworks, and that's when you could buy bottle rockets, and we were shooting the bottle rockets off the train as we were hanging onto the side of the car. I mean,
oh wow, yeah. I mean, that kind of stuff. I mean, now with the way. Just now with the way everything is, it's your kids can't get away with that kind of stuff anymore. Mm-hmm. You know, just everybody would just react to it being some terrorist attack or something. You know, it'd be thrown.
Oh yeah, and with cell phones. I mean, if they had cell phones when I was a kid, I'd still probably be serving some time. So yeah, cell phones were bad for people who were trying to get away with stuff, but really good with keeping down the criminal element, because I think a lot of kids just don't do stuff because they can be ratted out. Right. On the screen, I don't know if you see the podium there.
I do. Yeah, I recognize that. I don't know if you. There was a newspaper article, and some of the pictures in the news review newspaper article showed the same podium. This is where everybody was coming up to speak from, apparently.
Well, I guess you and I got listed. There's a close-up of that same picture, and here it says potential problems. It's supposed to be potential, but for some reason they put an R in there.
I think it's a difference. I think I actually checked that word in the dictionary, and there's a difference between potential and potential in the way that something might be a possibility, as opposed to them having reason to believe something.
Oh, okay. All right.
So I thought at first that was a typo, but then
I did too.
Yeah, but then I went to the dictionary or whatever. Oh, sorry, I can't do that while I'm on the thing. I think it glitched the video, so my apologies there. But yeah, anyway, there's a dictionary meaning that's pretty dang close to potential. It's just it just means that they had reason to believe for me anyway, they had the what I got out of our representative Virgil Osborne was that because I had in earlier when the news review announced the campaign kickoff, I had concerns about who exactly paid for the flyers, who was paying for the event, who was paying for the appetizers for so many people. I just had questions about that, especially since it was a combined event
Well,
and
how
there was,
dare you? How dare you
well, I
have
just didn't know. I was
questions?
just when that happened, I didn't get an invite. It wasn't like as a candidate, I was invited to the campaign kickoff, and so it said on the public announcement that was made through the GOP, Douglas County GOP's website, emailer or whatever that went out to people. But then there was also something that was put in the newspaper about it, and that's how I knew about it. And so
And
I sent in.
they didn't have the people who were paying for it listed on the. This was a fundraiser for several Republican candidates. David Brock Smith was one of them, for people who don't
Yeah.
know. And this podium was at the front of the room, which they were all speaking from. And the flyer that they sent out didn't have a listing of who paid for it. It's supposed to be a pack, but they're also not supposed to use food as an enticement. That's wrong too, from what I understand.
Well, yeah, it kind of seemed like that was like the event being held at the winery and then it being held with lawmakers and then there being appetizers offered. It just seemed to me like it was, well, I don't know. I just questioned like who was, I just was curious, like which one of the lawmakers was paying for it and how did that, was it like divvied out in between the ones that were there or, you know, just whatever that. And then also I didn't know if they could do that because I served time as a city councilor and there was rules about so many of us being in the same room at the same time, especially if we were talking about policy stuff. And so I had an ethics question about it. I had a campaign finance question about it. I called the Secretary of State and had a brief conversation with the gal that answered the phone there. And she asked that I put it in email, which I did. And I sent that to him. And she had mentioned that it sounded like it was a ethics and campaign finance issue and that my email would be circulated to several different parts of the election office. And that was pretty much it. And I think that was like the 8th or I don't know. It was like in January and then early part of January. And then I think they were kind of maybe just waiting for the event to happen, which, like I said, I wasn't invited to. I don't know. I had questions. It just didn't feel like the right place for me to be that night.
And you think,
I didn't
think
go.
that was why you got listed? Because they've got.
Well, I didn't know. I had no reason to. I mean, I haven't headhunted any of these people. I mean, even David Brock Smith. I mean, I haven't had an agenda against him. I haven't, waged a war or said anything negative or untrue about him. I haven't.
You've never been kicked out of a Republican meeting or anything?
No, actually, no. I never. No, for any of that. I haven't had any reasons with attending meetings or being asked to leave or none of that kind of stuff. And so I was just really, on Saturday I had been invited by Terry, one of the board members with the local GOP, to go to this central committee meeting at the community center in Winston. And she said, "Oh, I'd like you to
PCP."
Yeah. I put into being a PCP and they were supposed to adopt my application or do something like that at one of their meetings. But I wasn't actually formally sworn in. And then I did an application on the Secretary of State's office for this next election. So I don't know if I am or not, but so I didn't vote. I didn't have voting or anything. I just basically, I guess I was a guest at the central committee by Terry. Right. Can't think of her last name, but
well, that's just wild that at this event, the fundraiser.
Yeah, that was Donna the night Smith, before Friday.
Yeah, and this was Friday night, this past weekend, and they have Todd Vaughn, who's also a candidate in the first district, the Senate district. Paul Romero, who's also running in the first district. But then they got Michaela and Steve Hammerson. And she is the vice chair of the Douglas County Party. And of course, they have me listed, which I've never caused any problems at any of their events. And it just blows my mind. They had a guy named Rob Price. I know Rob Price. He's with the 3%ers, and he was the security. And it says right there, anyone starts anything negative, they will be asked to leave. And I just thought that just blows my mind that you can't go to these fundraisers if you're of a certain ilk. And so I guess we're kind of in a special club,
I mean,
actually.
I guess I mean, I can't speak to the reason everybody else, these other names were added. I mean, I can make assumptions.
Right.
But I haven't gotten confirmation of that. The only thing that I've gotten any close to, any information is from Virgil Osborne. And he said that he wasn't going to throw, it was one of the staff members, and that he wasn't going to throw them under the bus or throw their name out there or anything like that. That it wasn't him. He really reiterated that it wasn't him, and that it was something that wasn't supposed to be circulated to the public, that it, he told me that I should question whoever sent it to me, because that person was liable or something. But he said something about that it was not a public event, that it was a private event. And what else did he say? Yeah, and that basically that document was basically private intel that was shared with their hired security. And I just question, this fact that, like, what threat have I made to warrant security?
Right.
Like, that makes no sense. Like, when I was on city council and I was challenging some of these issues with the Antifa group, anyway, I had a legitimate threat in writing from an Antifa member on Twitter when it was Twitter. And I reported that to the FBI. And so I don't know where that's at now. There was never a response to it, but it was pretty much after that I started carrying my firearm full time, because I was concerned about my safety doing this like kind of public servant work, and having strong opinions, and especially communicating those online and online platforms. Like, I had my life threatened. I have to be my own first responder, and so that's what I took action and prepared to do to protect myself and my family. But I have not made any kind of threats like that to any of the lawmakers. I wouldn't have a reason to. And so I kind of really felt like, well, that's really damaging to my reputation. Like, I've like taken firearm training, and like I've concealed carry permit, and I'm like on the sheriff's posse and stuff. Like, you can't just say stuff like that. Like, there's no reason for you to be hiring security or putting my name on any kind of intel list that poses some kind of security threat, especially off the fact that I just have a concern that I shared with the Secretary of State. Like, I shouldn't be doxxed and penalized or put on any kind of list like that based off of making sending an email to the Secretary of State. That is absolutely insane. And I'm actually really surprised that these are Republican lawmakers that are behaving like this, and just really, really just bothered by that. And I kind of just wonder, like, is that because I carry my firearm, or, are they
well, I doubt they even know. I think it's more political. I think they're threatened with you because you're vocally outspoken. And that kind of leads me into this recall. Are you friends? Are you familiar with Michaela Hammerson and Terry Noonkester?
Well, I'm like, this is a small community, so we have common ground. We have things in common that we, but I don't know. I work so much, I don't really have time for friends stuff, and so I don't know. My life pretty much revolves around business and just taking care of myself and my family. And but I know what I know of her is that she is the chair of the GOP, that she does a lot of work in regards to setting up things for their meetings and stuff. She'll come ahead and prepare things for their meetings and make sure that everybody has their printed material. She's a really
vice chair.
active. She's a really active member on the GOP, and she also was doing their social media. And if I could say anything, I mean, she is so good about delivering information to the PCPs and to the public, and just letting the public know what's going on with the GOP. Well, and across the state, frankly, on a day-to-day basis. And that, being somebody that uses social media, that takes a lot of effort, and she's not being paid for that, from what I understand. And so I thought, well, and then Terry, we don't have much of a relationship. I can't really, relate on any experiences with Terry, but she's always been kind to me, and she invited me to that meeting. So.
Well, that's good, and I'm glad she did, because they needed all the allies they can. I heard they brought out the full force, a lot of elected officials and former elected officials, to do a recall against Michaela. And I kind of want to hear your thoughts on this, if you think it was justified, and if you went out and spoke out against the recall, or what did you do while you were there?
Well, I mean, I came as a guest, and Terry told me that, they were going to try to recall Michaela. I heard about that through the grapevine with the GOP members and on social media platforms. And so I was really surprised that they were making an attempt to recall her. And I didn't know the full length of what all of that was about, supposedly there was letters written to recall her, but there was none of that was circulated to the public to scrutinize or to criticize. So I have no idea about that. Terry, when she had invited me to the meeting, mentioned the opportunity to introduce myself as a candidate. So that was my motive for going to the meeting. Michaela, I followed that, because I was really surprised. But then also, there's just been issues with the local GOP's office for quite some time now. Like, a lot of the members sort of fighting amongst each other. And I guess my perception of it, is just that, change is really difficult for people to accept. And, it's just some of the older members have an issue with some of the new leadership coming on board. And I don't know that that's an issue that's just unique to the GOP, but I think that it may be more of a generational thing. I'm not entirely sure.
That's kind of the way I was seeing it as well. It just seemed like there was an old guard who was getting defensive against new people stepping up and taking over the party, which is ironic because I'm near 60. I was a Republican for a long time, used to go to the meetings here in Coos County. And as would be part of the old guard, I would tell them, we need fresh blood. We need fresh ideas. And if that means giving up, a chair position or a vice chair position or whatever, we need to do that. We need to step back and allow. And you know what else that we need? And this was my problem with not only Douglas, but with Coos County, is they also have to accept criticism. And they don't take criticism very well. And in fact, they tell you that you're attacking them and you're attacking their candidates. David Brock Smith, you're running against them. You've seen some of the things I've said against him. And I'm not attacking the party or destroy the party. I want to make the party better. And I want to have better candidates such as yourself. And when we have people who are in office, the incumbent, I think we have a right to criticize them when they do something wrong. And I think it's wrong of the old guard or the establishment in the party to back the incumbents and basically cut loose all of the other people who are running. And I think that list we just shown with Todd Vaughn, Paul Romero, and you just kind of shows that they're not backing you, that they're not supporting you guys. They're supporting the incumbent over everyone else.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, like, again, I can't speak for everybody else, but I don't see him supporting me. Heck, no. I've given him no reason to support me. I question everything they do. I have for a long time, and in many cases appeared in front of them, asking them questions, criticizing government for a very long time. I exactly see him supporting me. I mean, we live in a small community here. I mean,
Right.
Douglas County is the 5th largest county in the state and one of 3 that stretches from the valley to the coast. And so we're unique in those ways. But as far as our communities and stuff, we're really small, niched. So yeah, I mean, our current lawmakers, they basically are just kind of trained how to do the job, and they're doing it how the people that they feel like they got them elected want them to do the job. And so there's a big divide between the lawmakers and the majority of our district citizens, because our citizens are not being represented. I mean, timber's being represented. Timber industry, no biggie. Every single one of our lawmakers can speak on that till the sun comes up and probably through the next day. But in regards to the homelessness and these encampments and the destruction to the riverbanks and our watershed and Lord and all the and just everything, even through COVID and everything, and the businesses, like the businesses haven't had an opportunity to breathe or to recover in any way from the COVID stuff. And it's just our community is just barely keeping its head above the water, and we're being infiltrated by immigrants that are coming up here and being dropped off in our community, and they're soaking up resources that basically otherwise would go to people that are low income and people that are in need, that are residents of our community. And so I just don't know. I just can't understand where their focus is and stuff, when everybody in the community is talking about these things. They're just so disconnected.
And I'll show you a picture that someone sent me, and they told me that they thought that it was unfair that Larry Reeves, who's the chair of the Republican Party, was hovering over you when you were giving your discussion, and you were limited to only like 3 minutes, where everyone else was allowed to talk for however long.
It was so weird. I've actually spoke a lot in public at different events.
You were a city council
I spent 4
member.
years on city council.
Right.
It was like, and I've ran in debates, and I've done this election stuff several times now. And so I got a little bit of the gist about it, but this was the first time I've ever actually had this experience where the chair got up from his seat and just was, touching his arm to my arm.
Right.
And it was just so distracting. And I kept thinking it was like when, sometimes on TV interviews, when you're sitting and you have the TV faced at you and you're doing an interview with somebody, they'll like, this makes me remember Donna Spice interviews. Like anytime you do a Donna Spice interview, she'd touch the bottom of your foot, and that would kind of be the little indication that it was time to move on, or it was time, to kind of wrap it up or whatever. It was just a little cue, a little gentle cue that, we were moving on. And that in some way reminded me of that, but it wasn't like with her. She explained that process and stuff. I was expecting the little tap on the toe, but this was weird. This was attempting to take the microphone, like the microphone got cut off. And then I was really surprised by that. I remember looking at Sherry Brady, the treasurer at the GOP that was sitting nearest me, and just being like, what, really? What are you guys doing? And I mean, I think maybe I like approached that in a way that really threw everybody off, because I had sat through that whole meeting, and it was it was over 3 hours. It was over 3 hours. That is so long to have 60, 70-year-old people sitting in the chairs for that dang long. I mean, to not have like food, they're going to have a couple banana slices and a couple pieces of muffin or something. Like, that was exhausting. I cannot imagine people being excited to go to the next one. I mean, it just absolutely insane. Sat there, listened to the whole thing with Michaela, which was bizarre, and it had zero proof. I mean, he said that there was this process of recall, and that they needed to serve this certain notice in a certain amount of time. But then when it came to showing any kind of proof, like they said, oh, there was letters submitted and whatnot, and they didn't provide any of that to her as somebody that was being accused of something, or even if she wasn't being accused, because they made it seem like they didn't even have to have a reason for that. They were just like, literally 2/3 of us don't want you to be there. We don't have to say why, and you're out. And that was the gist of it. There was literally like, we don't have to give you a reason. That's just it. We're just going to take a vote on it. And so Larry rattled off, why he believed that she should deserve to be recalled. And some of those things were like about using Instagram and social media to, say things that were against David Bucksmith or whatever. A lot of it had to do with like sharing your show or what was going on with that. So I could see the connection there, to the names and whatnot. But, yeah, I mean, it was just really bizarre. He mentioned that she was using her social media to, say bad things about their candidate, and they felt like Larry literally said that basically if the guy committed some kind of crime or something, that they were still supposed to support their candidate.
Oh, that's crazy.
That is what he said. He said
that's
that basically this guy can do no wrong while he's our elected official, and that we're going to back him regardless. And you guys are not allowed to be impartial to him. Like, I mean, he's a Republican. We voted on him. We put him in there. We're keeping him. And if you got a problem with it, you can call him. You have his phone number, but we're not going to do it on the internet. Not going to say anything on the internet to make him look bad. Like, that was it,
How
and I was
just,
I'm like, wow, that's crazy. That's just wild. You know what I mean? And so anyway, when I got up to talk and introduce myself, I know it was part of the whole campaigning thing, and that was the intention of allowing me to speak, but I had to just clear the air a little tiny bit first on what I seen happen with that recall, and actually just say that from my view, I think you guys are really lucky to have her, because she puts out a lot of work and she's a volunteer. Right. And like this fighting and stuff. And basically that's where I went next, was just like, you guys got to stop this stuff. This isn't good for you guys individually. It's not good for this party. And then, somewhere around there, that's when Larry got up from the seat and came over to me. And then somewhere around that, when I was talking about somewhere in that, I was talking about like freedom of speech, and basically just because you have a different opinion doesn't mean that it's wrong. And that we are America, and these are supposed to be Constitution supporters, and that's what we're all. Everybody in this room is supposed to be a Constitution supporter, and the fact that you're saying that somebody can't talk, or you don't want to hear it, or you're going to identify it as misinformation, and you have no otherwise proof of that or anything, like, you can't just railroad over people because they have something to say that you disagree with. That is not right. You know what I mean? And then basically, yeah, anyway, the microphone got shut off. I laid it down on the podium, realized like I have an inside voice that I can make sure that people in the back of the room hear me. And so I just continued to speak. And a lady in the front row kind of called attention to, well, ma'am, what are you running for? And what do you want to do if you get elected? Right. And so, at that point in time, I focused on her answering her question, and, let her know that I was running for the seat that David Bucksmith is holding. And the reason why I was running is because I want you guys to have choices, because I don't like the idea of our incumbents, or, well, some of them may be, but
well, he's
I didn't
really
like
not an incumbent because he was appointed by the commissioners. He was appointed by the commissioners, which got the choice of the appointments from the PCPs. So he really hasn't been through an election for that Senate district. So calling him an incumbent is kind of unfair. And for them saying we're going to back him, do or die, seems really unfair to the three other people who are running in that race.
Well, yeah, it does seem kind of unconstitutional too. I mean, like, that's the whole point of the elections. And like, if people aren't going to run against the incumbent or whoever's currently holding that seat, then I mean, it really just kind of forecasts that people are not interested in participating with this process. And it kind of reminds me of, not including the youth in your church. And if you don't make a place for them, make room for them, they're going to grow up and their interests are going to be on other places, and they're going to not care about taking care of the church and the building and right. Having this place for future generations. And local government, it reminds me of the same thing. If they can't make room for the youth, then you have no future. Like it's part of it. You have, I heard some things from Larry about how they think that they're going to get people in. They have to vet them. They have to they have to fund them. They have to make sure that they mold them into the representative that they want. Well, all of that is so out of touch with reality. Our voters want authenticity. They want things that they agree with, things that they don't agree with. They want something more balanced out that benefits the majority. These sort of things that our representatives are working on are just basically, they're so disconnected from the rest of us.
I wonder if they would say that about Donald Trump. You know what I mean? Because if you tried to do all that with Donald Trump, no, Donald, you can't be as verbose as you are. You can't make those comments. He talks really badly about a lot of people in the Republican Party. And just recently, DeSantis dropped out, and now they've had a come together moments where, he's dropped the DeSanctimonious and DeSantis is supporting Donald Trump. And, it just seems to me like that's what happens after you've gone through this trial by fire of going through the election. You're going to be going through that. And I think them trying to put you into a box is just absolutely ludicrous. I don't think this is going to work. And I think it's going to be very just off-putting to a lot of young people out there.
Oh, yeah. Well, the thing at the meeting that really bothered me with the Central Committee meeting was with Larry is that, this politics stuff, and I know people love to disagree with me, and I welcome them to, but this whole thing with women in politics is still pretty new, and it's pretty much kind of, a man's world. And so women like people who may be of a different race or maybe, maybe have some kind of physical handicap or something, the pressure is on to try to find a place in this, to try to be able to speak your voice and to speak for your community and stuff. And so part of where I think that Larry can improve is basically just, trying to get out trying to educate himself basically about his body language and how he interacts with candidates, and especially female candidates or candidates who may be kids. Or maybe they, whatever that may be, maybe they may be a visitor from another planet. I don't really know. But the truth about it is that he needs, there needs to be some respect, and there needs to be some decorum, and he needs to hold to that, because people are looking at him. Like, I was looking at him. He's the chairman. He should have been moderating this meeting. He should have, I don't know. He should have had a gavel or something and been able to call to order the meeting several different times. I seen that, that opportunity come and gone, and it created a lot of contention in the room and kind of a hostile environment. And then that was just a very strange thing how he did with me. But I stayed the whole meeting. I listened to the rest of the speakers. I listened to David Brock Smith, who spoke at the very end of that. And, I could have got up and left. Half the people did after they took the vote for Michaela. They took 101 votes or something like that. Like, there was a lot of people there, and those were just the people that voted. I mean, there was other people that didn't. I was there and I didn't vote. And
she won she survived the recall, which is really kind of tells the old guard to shut the hell up. This is what people want, and they don't want to be attacked for expressing
when they
themselves.
left. They were so mad. They were like giving dirty looks and like, scoffing and like, yeah, it was, this is not a united party. Like some of these, like Virgil, for example, he wants to talk about like, oh, how bring the party together and unite and stuff, but it's almost at this point in time kind of pandering, because the issues are so needing for there to be more time for people to express their opinions, for people to kind of clear the air and hash it out. And, in the olden days, people would have had an opportunity to sit at the pub or something and go through a couple, or the pizza place and have a couple pitchers of beer and, or whatever that looks like. I don't know. Maybe it looks like a picnic or something. I don't know, but there's no opportunity to clear the air. There's no opportunity for the PCPs to talk, to participate at the meetings. It's just actually a mess. And, but no different from the Democrat Party. I talk to Democrats on a regular basis and a lot of their board members too. And the same stuff's happening. So, maybe it's just planetary alignment. I don't know, I mean, maybe it's just that part in the generation where there's a lot of the old folks that are kind of having to hand over some of those responsibilities to the younger folks. And I mean, if they can get them to volunteer, most people can't even get people to go to work. Right. I mean, the COVID stuff really screwed everybody up, so I don't know how it's going to play out.
I want to thank you for coming on and talking about this, because you're running a campaign and I didn't want you to take heat for coming on and talking about it, but I knew you were someone who's already, like I said, very outspoken. You're willing to take on authority when you believe authority should be questioned or they're doing something wrong. And you did that as a city councilor. Before we go on, what were some of the things that you learned from being a city councilor that you think you can take going to the legislature if you win this Senate race?
Well, shoot, so many different things. Mostly a lot of the decorum, how to conduct yourself in a meeting, how to interact with other people in the meeting, how to interact with your board members, how to interact with the public, how to communicate with the public, how to communicate with your board members. Like, I mean, it's just different realities. I mean, we're all in the same world here, but literally everybody is in different realities. And those folks at those commissions up there are not seeing the same things that we're seeing down here. And the way I look at it, it's just that our officials that have been in their positions one way or the other through their time, if it's more than 4 years, they probably need to take a break. Focus on themselves, being a normal citizen, living under the rules and the policies that they've helped create. They need to live under those. And
go back to the party. Maybe they need to go back to the party and learn the ranks over again a little bit.
Maybe they do. Yeah, I mean, there's time to learn. Revisit some things and figure out. Is this really something you want to do? If you take away all the money and all the contributions and all the parties and stuff, are you still interested in this? You start doing some self-reflection. I had some time to do that after city council because I took on a lot of things. We built housing policy and a homeless commission, and we fired a municipal judge and interviewed and hired another one. We retired a city manager after 7 years and went through several interviewing rounds of new city managers, hired a new city manager. Like the list goes on. Like our city recorder, the same thing. Like the whole the departments were basically, I don't know if I would say drain the swamp, but there was, or a mass retirement or whatever it was. But I was doing a lot of praying and a lot of communicating with people in all sorts of parts of our community and the county and the state to try to say, hey, we need some help down here. And it's not easy to do when you confront that in a public way. And so there is a process of working with people behind the scenes, so to say. And developing these relationships with other lawmakers to get things presented on agendas and things like that. So there is some orchestrating, some behind the stage work, but a lot of it is being honest and transparent and like listening and making time to listen to your constituents. And so I do that great. And as far as speaking up for my community, I don't know that there's anybody. I mean, there's people that are going to speak better than me because, like I've said before, that everybody thinks they're smarter than you. That's a whole thing about the vetting thing. It's so old hat because, you're not, I mean, this whole, you have to be from a certain school. You have to make a certain income. You have to come with all these references and stuff. What a disservice that we're doing to ourselves by doing that, because I've met the smartest people with the most degrees and they're dumb. There's hardly lights on in there. And then I've talked to people on the street and they'll see the most profound thing that I'll be thinking about for days, and so it's just, we really should stop this stuff, like judging each other and just right out the gate too. I mean, just come on, let's listen to each other. We're part of the same community. And if we're going to work out these differences within the party and these groups and stuff, we have to make room to like hear each other, because that's what I see as one of the biggest problems right now is our lawmakers are making us the threat. We're not the threat. They work for us.
Right.
Like, they wouldn't even be in their jobs if it wasn't for us. And then they want to turn against us, that we're the ones that are the problem, and it's like, I don't know. I told Virgil, if I'm the problem in his book, then he's the coward in mine, because I don't want representatives like that. I want ones that are going to go to bat and they're going to stand on the Constitution and they're going to do what they're supposed to do for us, not for them, not self-serving themselves. Like, so, I can't wait to go to Salem. I told him the other day, I'll be driving to Salem with a smile on my face and a gleam in my eye to go up there and tell them all about everything that's happening in our community and get the money that we deserve to put back into our communities. And there's policy stuff that David Brock Smith could have already been working on, that would allow builders and developments to be building housing for the community that we have right now. We're behind on our housing units by an insane amount. And these system development charges, I mean, what an easy wash for them to be able to just say, we're not doing this for residential building until we can start forecasting our units to align with our future growth, whatever that is, and it's just like, there's this whole arguing back and forth. And what I heard from David Brock Smith, and I want to address this right now because this is what comes to mind, is this thing that he was saying about like, oh, he can't do nothing without the Democrats, and oh, it's a Democrat majority, and oh, we have to do Virgil's plan, this mathematical formula. What a bunch of crap. If he can't do the dang job, then how about he just stays home and lets me do it? He can just drop out of the race right now. We can just, I'm sure Todd Vaughn would support me. He knows my heart. He knows, I'm glad he's running. I'm happy that he's running. I wish you would run. I want other people to run in these elections. I want people to be involved in this, because if they don't, we're not securing much of a future at all.
And that's what's kind of upsetting with the Republican Party and them just getting behind. And once again, I hate using the word incumbent, but the chosen one, because we benefit by having choices. The more choices we have, the more reason we have to get involved and pick a person that really represents us. And you can't do that if you don't have more choices. So
and that's what I was trying to explain to the PCPs during my time that I was supposed to be campaigning, was just that, the more information is better for them. The more information that we have, you have something to discern, you have something to contrast. But to expect the lawmakers to be like, here's the information, I told you that, don't interrupt me.
Sit down, sassy lady.
This is what it is. I've been doing this since 2017. I know more than anybody else here. You guys are all stupid. Go back and pay your taxes and let us spend it. I just don't really know that. There's just not much faith in this process when, you have the lawmakers that we have now just overbearing on you, ready to cut your mic, ready to shut you down because they don't agree with what you're saying. They don't like to be called out. They don't want to be criticized. And again, like I said, unless there's actually a credible threat, there's something in writing, like I've threatened you, you have a reason to be fearful for your life.
Don't put me on a list, right?
Don't put me on no list. You know what I mean? Like, unless you have a reason to believe that. Like, that's crazy. Like, I know everybody in this community. I've lived here my entire life. Like, the people at that party, like, I worked at Abasella for several years. I worked in the wine industry. Like, the people at Melrose know me. You know what I mean? Like, that's ridiculous. Yep. Like, you can't just, who is the security? And then, like, my name's on some list that I don't know.
Yeah.
Who it was hired to give to, so on and so, under what precedence, it's like so wild.
Yeah. So I gotta go. We got to get out of here, but I want you to quickly give your website and any contact information that you want to give real quick.
Oh yeah. My email is my first name, Ashley, Ashley, the letter N as in Nancy, Roseburg spelled out, at hotmail.com. Welcome that. My cell phone number is 541-530-1460. It's a public number. Please call me or text me or DM me, whatever is comfortable. If you want to make time to meet in Roseburg, I'd be happy to meet with you in person. I'd love that. Social media, I'm on all of it. All you got to do is search my name up in the search bar. And there's lots of information about me on the internet. Just read it, discern for yourself. I mean, a lot of it shows my heart and my interest, and I care a lot about this community, and I'm excited to go to Salem and to do the work up there, because they're not listening to our representatives, and if they're not listening to them, they're not listening to you, and they're not listening to me. And so it's time to take a different voice up there, and maybe say it a different way. Maybe they need to hear
I completely agree with you.
In a different way.
Ashley, I'll have to get you back on again, because I want to talk about your campaign. We were kind of talking about other things at the beginning here, so we'll get you back on definitely within the next month or so, and I'll have all the candidates on, because I like giving that choice to people, and I want to thank you for running. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me on, and hopefully the Republican Party can straighten out their chair, you know what I mean? Because I want people to feel welcome to do these things. Like, the cards are already stacked against us as it is. We need to at least have some way to communicate with the public. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's the least that we can do. So get out the vote, and if your viewers and citizens are interested, line up at the courthouse, and then that way we can secure our vote in person with our elections office. So but yeah, that's the important thing. Make sure you keep your eye on the state website and your information's correct, and that we can try to find some integrity in our election if it's possible.
Hopefully. Thank you so much. I'll be talking to you. Okay,
thank you so much. Appreciate you inviting me again. Thank you so much.
No problem. You take care. All right, that was Ashley Hicks. She is running for Senate District 1. She's running against DBS. He's not the incumbent. He was chosen by the commissioners of Douglas, Curry, and Coos County. And as far as I'm concerned, the fix was in for DBS. And we just got an establishment politician who's really not interested in us. I'm trying to get Tim from Tom and Gigs. Tim, can you hear me? He's having a little bit of trouble. I don't know what's going on in Coos Bay, but while he's up there, I want to give out another clue for 3H Tree Service. They're on Ocean Boulevard, and they're at an RV park on Ocean Boulevard. I won't give you the name of the RV park, but right now, they're at an RV park on Ocean Boulevard. And if you're the first to find Matt Holman, he'll give you $50. And then the round will be over, because we can only have one winner per round. And so that's still going on. We're still playing Where's 3H Tree Service. So once again, I'm going to give that clue. He's at an RV park on Ocean Boulevard. So that should narrow it down. I haven't got any word for him from the last hour. So when we do, well, hopefully he'll give me a call. We can bring it back on, and we'll do more stories and news, because there's a lot of things happening. I just want to give this out. The Supreme Court, I don't know what the hell is going on with the Supreme Court, but they've just sided with Biden, and they're going to allow the Border Patrol to take down those fences that the Texas government has put up. Let me read you what I've gotten here. The Supreme Court sided with the Biden administration on Monday in a split decision that will allow federal agents to cut razor wire installed by Texas officials along the U.S. border amid the worsening crisis created by President Biden's policy. The 5-4 decision granted an emergency appeal filed by the Biden administration to reverse the injunction from the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, and now allows the feds to dismantle concertina wire while the lawsuit over Texas efforts to assume the duties of enforcing the international border, a responsibility that's been abdicated by the Biden administration, moves ahead. So they're going to move ahead with that, I guess. And, what can I say? Hopefully they will get their stuff together and it'll work its way out, because I think if the Biden administration, if they're not going to enforce the law, then we need to allow the states to do it themselves. We can't just have Democrats complaining about Texas bringing up immigrants into their state, illegal aliens. Let's don't call them immigrants, but we need to do something. We need to do something about this. And as far as I'm concerned, the Texas and all the other border states, I doubt you'll be able to get New Mexico or even Arizona to do this because of their governors, including California, but they should be putting National Guard down there, the state National Guard, and they should be stopping these people from coming over. It's, I don't know. Let me see here. Tim, are you there? Oh, I lost we just lost his connection. Maybe he'll try it again here and we'll get him on. But it says they're saying that here he comes again. There he is. All right.
Jake.
Hey, man, what's happening?
You're the magic man.
I wasn't sure if you were going to be able to get in. I kept sawing I could see the little circle just going around and around while I was buffering.
Josh got her dialed in. He's the tech man. He knows what's going on. So
Josh is the man.
He is. He knows the technical stuff. He don't know how to weld an inch, but he can figure out how to program a truck. So we're both a good team.
I'm excited. We got that tonneau cover, and we're going to be in on Wednesday to get that installed. And I'll tell you what, me and my wife are just excited about this.
It's going to be awesome, dude.
I think
you got enough in there. You could probably put 5 or 6 Democrats in there.
Yeah. Take them down to the Reaver.
Down to the Whiskey Run Cliffs and say, jump, and if you make it and you survive, you're good to go, I guess. So
yeah.
It's pretty sad, but our politicians need to go off a cliff. They're making the country go off a cliff, right? They were talking about the border and stuff. Can
you believe that?
I can, and it's sad, and it's funny, but it's not funny, and I'm just, all of our dollars are going to what? Abortions and all this other junk, where's some accountability? I mean, even when it comes right down to the homeless, I'm involved in a home trying to get some people out. They have more rights than we do.
Yeah,
their name is on the mortgage, but it's craziness. This is backward stuff. And, if you want to see people start getting,
wild.
Yeah, I mean, it's if the law says there is no law, then I guess that leaves it up to you and me.
And that's the way that people are looking at it. They're saying, well, if they're not going to put the criminal in jail for committing crimes, then I guess they won't put me in jail for stopping the criminal from committing crimes.
Yeah, I give you an award. I'd buy you dinner down at Billy's down there, man. I said, we'll have a beer and we'll have a toast. I said, it's just amazing. It's cost the people a lot of money. I'm not the only one out there that has property, which we don't have much. But it's something that, someone else could destroy it and have no accountability, and you're stuck with a whole thing to keep it going and fixed. It's just crazy. But if we can just get the right people in government, maybe we can get some laws changed. And it starts right at the top with Kotek or Tex or whatever her name is there, and get some real people. What's his name from John from Metric Motorworks here today, and he's running for office. He's running for a city council position, I believe, and then running for mayor is what he told me today. So that'd be pretty awesome. But so he said I had to do it, but I'm still working. I still got responsibilities here, and if you're going to do something, you want to commit. full bore, kind of like your show. You're committed, and that's why you're good at what you do. So in order to do a good job, you got to be there all the time and keep your eye on them bad guys. We can get some people out, maybe. Like I said, there's 2 or 3 positions that are very vulnerable, so hopefully we can get them out. But Ben Franklin, he was a good guy. We can't hardly tell the good guys from the bad guys. The guys with badges say they can't do nothing because there's no law. And then you've got other guys, attorneys, they try to do this, but they just take all your money. I don't know. It's just, it never gets to where we understand who is who, and people are lying all the time, especially politicians. If politicians talking, he's lying, right?
Yeah.
But old Ben Franklin, he says, war is when the government tells you who the bad guy is. A revolution is when you decide that for yourself. So a lot of people, I think, are deciding for themselves who the bad guy is, and it's the government. 99% of it is those guys doing stuff to us that, the responsible, hardworking folks.
I've never heard that one before. That's a damn good quote. I've never heard that one. That's a good one there, Tim.
I'm telling you, I'm coming up once in a while. I come up with a good one. So
all right. Well, now you got to do a commercial and tell us what the hell you do for a living.
Well, we try to spread the word, spread the hate and discontent. We have hats here. I miss America I grew up in, and I give them to a lot of folks, especially coming in with a veteran hat on. I like to see them leave with another hat. So, they're fed up too. And those guys, they work real cheap down on the border. All you got to give them is 06 or 308, and hey, this all you'll see is the backside of folks heading the other way, I think, real quick, because they don't mess around. But we do a lot of stuff. We do a ton of suspension work, ball joints and tie rods and alignments, and Austin's great on all that stuff. We do putting a winch bumper on today and doing some lights on a Jeep. And I did some exhaust on a Chevy pickup, put a hitch on a Beamer, on a Mercedes. And a little muffler work on a Honda. So it's kind of been busy for a Monday, and Josh has been ordering parts, and we're very blessed and very happy to see people come in the door and try to help them as much as possible. And, we're not always the fastest. I'll be honest. We had a guy leave today, had a hitch schedule, and we told him it'd be a few hours. Well, it was a few hours, and, sometimes jobs don't always go smooth,
Right.
And so you got to have a little patience, and unfortunately left without getting his hitch on there. But, sorry, it's not what we wanted. We need the sale, and he needs his hitch done. So if he comes back, I hope he does. And no hard feelings, but it just is frustrating when you're trying so hard to get things done. And sometimes the time schedule doesn't always work out perfectly. We do our best. But
I expect that when I go in, especially for automotive. And my dad was he owned his own auto shop, and I know, like you said, you can get into a job, you think it's going to take an hour or two, and then all of a sudden, you find problems. You can't get the parts, or you don't have the right part, or the part's not fitting, or you got a screw that won't come out. I don't know how many times that's happened. So yeah, I totally agree with you. I don't know why anyone would go in there. It's not like a barber shop. This is an auto. This is an auto center, and it just takes time sometimes to get good quality work. That just blows my mind. I've never. If I'm there all day, I just expect that. That's just what happens sometimes.
Yeah, you do your best, and you don't want people to come back with a problem just because you were in a hurry. That doesn't work out for the customer or us, and we got to. He's got to spend time coming back, which a lot of people, their time is valuable, and I get it. And so we tell a lot of people it's going to take some time to do something. Maybe you can bring it, drop it off, leave it, we'll run you back to work, run you back home. In your case, live in Bandit. So we try to get it done while you're here, or whatever. We do our best to try to work with both sides of the time frame for us and for you. So anyway, it's just a tricky thing. It's a balancing act, but we're doing our best. And the wife's out front. She's paying the bills and paying the power bill so we can have lights on. And Josh is doing his. And we got Joe out here on the RC thing. And he's doing real good on that. So we got a ton of inventory on RC cars and all the different parts, you name it. And he's got the knowledge to get it done. And give us a call out here at shop at 135 South Shoneman and Coos Bay. There's one block past the Boom and White here in Empire. I won't say it's the Sunshine Corner today. It's not, but it's the homeless corner of the Bay Area. There you go. I knew. So you can't miss it. Once you drive out here and you see all the folks wandering around Zombieville, you're close. But anyway, phone number is 541-888-4660. And, another little good quote here is all these planning commissions, right? All this garbage they plan. And I just heard about the thing in Washington State today where they're pretty much going to 86 every gun FLL or FL, the FFL license folks that have gun stores. Pretty much they'll never be able to comply with the requirements. It'll put them out of business, and possibly even Cabela's. And even if Cabela's decide to stay with it, they say they have to have bars on every window. They have to keep a log of, like, I don't know, 5 years of all their video. It's insane. Nobody can afford to do it, or it's just the craziest thing. So I don't know how long it's going to take for that kind of crap to come here, all that are trying to do things. But anyway, Frederick August, the more the state plans, the more difficult planning becomes for the individual, like our land development people, all these people telling you what you can do with your land, all these easements that pretty much 86 every bit of property you have there. I honestly, I don't know if I could do it. People can't tolerate this garbage anymore. It's just insane. And I went through that back in the 80s with planning commissions and all that garbage, LCDC and all that garbage. You got land, you pay the tax, but you can't touch it. You can't even mow the damn lawn. So I don't know. Something got changed, but I appreciate being on. This is an awesome program, and I hope it gets more and more every week. And I'm telling people about it, and come down and patronize our place. We stand for freedom and American way, and we love the community. I've been here all my life, and it's just sad to say that it's nothing like what it used to be. I grew up in Empire actually a lot, and it's nothing that I want to bring my kids up in now. I mean, I work here because my building's here. If I could move my building, I would. But it's not possible. It's not. We can't just get up and leave. It's just a tough deal. But anyway, we appreciate everybody doing business here, and appreciate you. And I guess I'll leave it at that. And till the next time, adios, amigos.
Adios, amigos. You have a good one, Tim.
Okay,
See
buddy.
you Wednesday.
God bless America, buddy. See ya.
All right. And I want to give that clue out again for Ware's 3H Tree Service. They're at an RV park on Ocean Boulevard. This shouldn't be hard. Ocean Boulevard isn't that big. So if you want to win $50, you got to go down Ocean Boulevard. You got to look for an RV park, and somewhere in that RV park, you're going to find 3H Tree Service. And I'll tell you why. You guys, if I'm not getting a call here soon from Matt, I'm going to have to give you an even bigger clue. But right now, I think that's a pretty darn good clue. I don't know what else I can tell you. I don't know. But that's part of the game. And it's in Coos Bay. It's on Ocean Boulevard, and it's in an RV park. So there are the three clues. Well, we were just talking to Ashley Hicks, and we were talking about the Douglas Republican Party. I think they seriously need some, they need some attitude adjustment. They put me on a list of potential problems. And I'm not a problem. I never have been at any of these meetings. Yes, I'm going to speak out against things that I disagree with. Yes, I'm going to ask tough questions, and I expect answers to those questions. And if you don't like it, well, tough shit. I don't really care if you don't like it. You're the politician. You're my employee. And I'm one of those who believes that if you work for me, then you need to answer my questions. You need to answer to me. Well, they just sent out an invitation from the Republican Party, and I had already received one from Monica Despain. She's running against, I believe she's running in the 4th district. I can't really remember right offhand, but she's having an event at Cafe 101 this week on Thursday. And, it's something that I was probably going to go to, will probably go to. And one of the things that she did send out an invitation so that people can come to her meeting. But it was on a Thursday when the Republican Party, the Coos County Republican Party, has their usual meetings, and they normally have their usual meetings on Thursday, and that's when Monica Despain is going to be meeting at Cafe 101. And I'm trying to look up the email. I don't know why I didn't have that up here sooner, but I'm having a little bit of trouble finding that email that was sent out to me. And it's it was explaining when she was having her event, but I can't find the time on that. It doesn't really matter because the Republicans sent out an invitation to that event that was just downright rude. It was the same kind of crap that they're having in Douglas County. And this is part of the reason that most of us don't like going to the Republican meetings in Coos Bay or anywhere else that they have these meetings. Right now, they're having them at a church over the bridge in Coos Bay. And the church has a really small parking lot, and it's not a very nice place to meet. I mean, it's a nice church, but I mean, for a whole big party, nobody wants to go there and park in that small parking lot. And so I'm not criticizing the church. I'm criticizing the party. They should find better places to meet. But they also need an attitude adjustment. Rod Schilling is the chair. And I used to think that Rod Schilling was a friend of mine. I used to believe that this guy was someone who was a friend of mine, but he's obviously got problems with me criticizing the party because he went after my advertisers, or said he was threatened to go after my advertisers. I heard he did go after the advertisers of Diane Rich, who she had a newsletter, a weekly newsletter. And if you're looking at the screen, that's the chairman's message from Rod Schilling. And I can tell you right now, if this is the kind of crap that Rod Schilling is sending out to people he wants to start helping build the Republican Party in Coos County, he needs to step down as chair. If this is the crap, I'm going to read it to you. It says, as of late, the CCRCC has experienced some disunity caused by recent disseminated misinformation and personal opinions both within and outside our Republican Party. You know what he means by that? He means that people have been criticizing. And of course, he talks about misinformation, but he doesn't give you one iota what that misinformation is. It's kind of like David Brock Smith. He keeps accusing me of spreading misinformation, but not a damn one of them will tell us what that misinformation is. It's kind of like Facebook. When Facebook gives you a notice and says, this post goes against our standards, and then they don't tell you which post it is, and you have to try to figure out yourself what the hell Facebook is talking about. Well, I'm going to read this, and I'm going to tear apart each paragraph, because each paragraph in this long tirade of a message that he sent out with an invitation to Monica Despain's event that she's having on Thursday was just absolutely ludicrous. It says, if you're not a Republican and you desire to do damage to the Republican Party, then like the Democrat Party or the Green Party, etc., you'll be given the same credence as our other adversaries. We see individuals attacking Republican candidates in statewide races, our local legislatures in both houses, or even the Republican Party itself, while rarely attacking the Democrat Party, whose policies have led to the rapid decline of life in the state of Oregon, which I would agree the Democrat policies have led to a rapid decline in the life expectancy of people in the state of Oregon. However, the reason that many of us are criticizing people in the Republican Party is because they're capitulating with the Republicans, such as David Brock Smith. David Brock Smith is one of those people who is capitulating with the Democrat Party. He's supposed to be a Republican conservative. He's lying about the windmill he passed. Because why? Because he's working with the Democrats to bring that project in to the coast here. And they didn't like that I was saying that. They didn't like that a lot of us were talking about the fact that David Brock Smith was absolutely just doing something completely ridiculous by supporting the windmill project. Now, of course, he says he's not supporting the windmill project. Now he says that he's opposed to it. But which David Brock Smith are we supposed to believe? The one that's in the legislature working with the Democrats, or the ones who are out here, or the one David Brock Smith who's out here trying to get our vote? I think it's absolutely ludicrous. And for him to say that we're adversarial, nobody in this county has worked any harder than me to get Republicans elected to office. I helped get the school board in North Bend to turn mostly Republican. I helped get Rod Taylor, who's a Republican, in the office of commissioner. I've helped a lot of Republicans, including David Brock Smith, get into the House, the legislature here in Oregon. So for him to say, and I'm talking about Rod Schilling in this message he sent out, because he's talking about people like me, that we're being adversarial to the Republican Party. That's a bunch of bullshit. We are trying to build up the Republican Party. And the only way you can do that is if the establishment, like Rod Schilling, will have a little bit of self-reflection, look at the mistakes they're making, listen to people like me instead of going after my advertisers. No, he needs to listen to people like me. He could build a better Republican Party. But I'm going to read this. This continues. It says, and you can read along with me. I'm on the third paragraph here, and it's on the screen. It says, if you are a Republican, but consider yourself only grassroots, too conservative to get along with the average Republican, think that no Republican is right enough for me, or I have no time for Republicans that do not totally agree with me, and you desire to publicly attack your fellow Republicans, then you too are going to find pushback against your narcissistic behavior. So what he's saying there is that anyone who is challenging the Republican Party or the people who are serving as Republicans in office, if you criticize them, somehow you're a narcissist. Yet the Republican Party is the one who's saying that we cannot be criticized. How narcissistic is it to have a political party and Rod Schilling, the chair of the local Coos County Republicans, tell you that you're not allowed to criticize the Republicans? That sounds like the most narcissistic crap I've ever heard. Oh, I'm sorry. Our Republicans, they suck. I know they suck, but you can't complain about it. What kind of nonsense is that? So I don't know what the hell Rod Schilling is talking about when he says that, but this whole message is crazy. Okay, I'm on the fourth paragraph. It says, as I've stated in our meetings many times, if you have a problem with your Republican representatives, you can contact them individually. You can primary them at the ballot box, or you can even run against them if you so desire. Attacking them in public does the Democrats' job for them and cast doubts on your motives. This is especially true when you tear down our party's own candidates while offering no alternatives or solutions to your contrived problems. Meaning that if you criticize them, if you criticize their pronounced candidate, their chosen one who's supposed to run as a candidate, and for the Coos County Republican Party, it seems to be David Brock Smith or any other incumbent, because they're not helping all the three other candidates out there. They're not giving them the same support that they're giving David Brock Smith. And if you criticize them, well, that's contrived. You're just creating an imaginary problem that doesn't exist because, well, you're a narcissist, of course. But this is the strange thing. He says that you can contact these representatives. I did contact David Brock Smith. David Brock Smith didn't like my line of questioning. He told me I could go fuck myself and that he would never be on my radio show. And then he worked to cancel my radio show. That's what happens if you call your representative. Well, gee, Rod, you dumbass. Who the hell's going to call a representative when they're going to work to tear you down as a business or an individual, or take away somebody's newsletter or go after somebody's radio show? Rod, you have to be a flippin' moron to think that anyone wants to contact our representatives when they're going to retaliate against any criticism you have against them. And then for you to say, well, you can run against them. Well, we are running against them. I'm supporting a candidate in the Senate position. I support all the candidates who are running against David Brock Smith. I think all of them would be a better choice. Even Paul Romero, I think, would be a better choice. I'm supporting Todd Vaughn. I think he's a great guy. And yeah, we've got other solutions. We offer you solutions all the time. But to tell us that we cannot criticize the Republican Party, well, that's just crapola, Rod. You need to take a big step back, buddy, because you're really destroying the local party. And that's why you can only get 13 people to show up at a meeting, Rod. You know, when I was involved with the Republican Party, we would have about 100 to 150 people show up. And we used to have a potluck, and it used to be fun. Now, the last time I went to a Republican Party, it was at their headquarters at that old veterinarian building across from the mall over there by Newmark. And Rod Schilling came out and he tore down Kevin Starrett. He started talking shit about Kevin Starrett, saying that he was a radical and he was in charge of a fringe group. Why? Because Kevin Starrett dared to criticize David Brock Smith and many of the other Republicans. So what did Rod Schilling do? Instead of taking the criticism and trying to find out a better way to work with Kevin Starrett and try to acknowledge that he has criticism, no, what does Rod do? He attacks Kevin Starrett. So that's just absolutely ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous, Rod. Then he says here, this is another paragraph, and I wish that this were an isolated problem, but it is not. There are many groups throughout the state, self-proclaimed grassroots, self-described conservatives, and the like, but mostly they are ignorant of the protocol and procedures that make up Oregon politics. Screaming and yelling about the folks that are actually doing the job will not get you your way. Being on the fringe of the majority will not get you elected. And if burning it all down is not something you are willing to do, then another avenue will always be necessary. Rod, you are a flippin' moron. I can't wait till the next time I see you, because I'm going to tell you, you're a flippin' moron. It's like, geez, an isolated problem. No, you know why it's not an isolated problem, Rod? Because people, the leadership, the establishment in the local Republican Party, such as the leadership in Douglas County and many other counties across this state and across this nation, they have their heads up their ass. And maybe if they didn't have their heads up their ass and were ignoring the grassroots, you know, the grassroots, the people who actually get you elected, the people who actually support your party, the people who are hopefully going to put Donald Trump into office, those are the grassroots that you're insulting there, Rod Schilling. I'm sorry, not Rod Taylor, Rod Schilling. So many Rods. And saying that they're self-proclaimed grassroots. I'll tell you what, I've been working on grassroots for a long time, and a lot of people call people like you in the Republican Party the fringe. They've been calling me the fringe forever. But to say that some of us are too ignorant to understand the procedures and the protocol, I'll tell you what, Rod, I've done a hell of a lot more than you to create laws in this state that make sense. I've fought against laws that they tried to establish, and I've helped create policies all across Coos County in different cities, including my own, that help the people, Rod. I don't remember you doing any of that. All I remember is you bitching about people complaining or criticizing about your party that deserves the criticism. You know, this is just, the guy's an idiot. I just tell you what. And let me see. It says the Democrat, let's see, those of us who have been involved in the hard work over the last decade of replacing a hardcore Democrat House seat and a hardcore Democrat Senate seat, both with Republican legislatures, know how difficult that this was to accomplish. And even though we often disagree with our own candidates and electees, we know that the alternative is a lot worse. Is it a lot worse? I don't know if it is a lot worse. If we can get a Democrat who votes just as good as David Brock Smith, then I guess it doesn't really matter now, does it, Rod? And for you to sit there and say that you've gotten rid of the Democrats, that you've gotten rid of the hardcore Democrats, I've got news for you. They're still there, Rod. They're still in the Senate. I don't know where you've been. You talk about people like me not knowing the procedures and the policies. Do you not understand, Rod, that the Democrats still hold the House? They still hold the Senate. And thanks to a fellow Republican senator in the Senate, people like David Brock Smith, people like Dick Anderson, they allowed Tim Knopp to go back there to the Senate after the walkout, after 10 Republicans walked out. Well, actually, it was 8 Republicans, 2 independents. After they walked out of the Senate, Tim Knopp should have walked back into the Senate, and the first thing he should have demanded was that the Democrats excuse the absence of those fellow senators. But did Tim Knopp do that? No, he didn't. No, he didn't. The son of a bitch is a stupid moron like you, Rod Schilling. And I'll tell you what, they should have done something better than surrendering to the Democrats. And if me, someone who's in the grassroots, someone who's been working in politics for over 30 years, complains or criticizes your party for doing this asinine stunt and complain about your representatives, because Tim Knopp doesn't represent me. He may be a Republican, he may be a senator, but he doesn't represent me. We need to replace him. And if we could get a moderate Democrat to replace Tim Knopf, I don't think it would be any worse, because Tim Knopf is the reason that the Republican Party lost the Senate and will lose the Senate for the next several decades. It's going to take a long time for the Republicans to make up the complete defeat that Senator Tim Knopf gave to the Democrat Party. And you can contribute that failure, that defeat, to Senator Anderson, Senator Finley, Senator Hansel, and of course, Senator David Brock Smith. I'm going to read you this last paragraph by Rod Schilling. It says, "And as I myself have been attacked over the years, while volunteering with no monetary gain, giving of my own family's finances, and having no other aspirations other than living out my life as a free individual, I will continue to call out the destruction-only crowd who tear things down and never build up or create anything of value. Screw you, Rod Schilling. Screw you. You think the rest of us are making money off of this? You think the grassroots is making anything off of this? You think you're the only piece of crap who's ever done something for the party? Let me tell you what, a lot of us have done things for this party. I worked very hard to get a lot of Republicans elected. And if you're going to say and whine, bitch, and moan because you're not getting paid and you had to volunteer for this position, well, then get the hell out, Rod. Rod Schilling, you need to hit the road. You're no longer really representing Coos County. And I think the people are going to start seeing this. And I think your party is getting ready to kick your ass out of the party, because we don't need people like you who are part of the establishment, who are going to cover for the lies and deceit that's being portrayed upon the people of Oregon by the people who are supposedly Republicans in the House and in the Senate, like Tim Knopf, like David Brock Smith, like Dick Anderson. All of those guys, Finley, Hansel, they stabbed us in the back. And you, part of the party establishment, telling us that we have no business to criticize you, that's a bunch of bullshit, Rod. And I'm telling you right now, the party here in Coos County, you don't represent them. I am willing to bet that over a period of time, you're going to be kicked out of the party because they're tired of phonies like you. And for you to tell people that they're not allowed to criticize your party, you can go to hell. Because a lot of us have put in a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of work into this. And then you've got people, shitbags like David Brock Smith, attacking individuals, attacking people like Danessa Rains, attacking people like this lady I had on here, Ashley Hicks, attacking people like Michaela Hammerson and her husband, Steve Hammerson, attacking people like Diane Rich, and going after me because he doesn't like the fact I'm asking him a couple of hard questions. Well, Rod Schilling, you can go to hell. That's what my message is to you. This party is done with you, and you're going to see a change, because change is a-coming. Change is a-coming. And you're going to be on the other side of this venue. You're not going to be able to be in charge for longer if you keep telling people they're not allowed to criticize the Republican Party. I don't know who the hell this guy is, this Rod Schilling. I thought he was a friend of mine. But for him to attack me, for him to go and say that he's going to go after my advertisers and Diane Rich's advertisers after all we've done for the party, that's just ludicrous. And I want you people to think about this. I want you people to think about this. Do you want to be a member of a party that you can't criticize? I certainly don't. But I'll tell you what, that may change soon. And we're going to have more about that in future coming up shows, because I'm not done with the Republican Party yet, because they're making a lot of mistakes. What they're doing in Douglas County to people, they went after Michaela Hammerson, and they tried to recall her, and they tried to recall Terry Noonkester, all because they allowed me to go speak to their PCPs. If that's all it takes to get kicked out of the Republican Party, maybe the Republican Party isn't who we think it is. And maybe it's time for the grassroots, you people out there, maybe you need to start attending these meetings I know they're meeting at a crappy place, but you need to start attending these meetings and you need to start changing the leadership of this party. That's all there is to it. That's the only way that it's going to change. So I don't know. I know I'm going on a rant here. I know I'm cussing a little bit, but I'll tell you what, I just read that memo. And so I had to post it. If you want to read that memo, you can go to my website, robtaylorreport.com, go to my blog page, and it's right there on that blog page. You can read it for yourself. But I was insulted by it. And I think anyone who's in the grassroots, who've worked their ass off for the Republican Party, the local Republican Party, I think they're probably a little pissed off too. And it's going to come back to bite you in the ass, Rod Schilling. So shame on you, Bow. Shame on you. Geez, enough of that rant. Let's go on to another issue. They just sent this notice out, the Coos Bay did, that boiler issues closes Mingus Park pool. I know I'm completely going in another direction here, but this is important because I'm hoping they don't come back to the taxpayers to have to pay for this pool. They're talking about bringing another pool here into Bandon. They've been talking about it for over 30 years. They've been talking about it since I've been here, and I don't have a problem with the pool. I think the pool is a great idea if they want to put a pool up in Bandon. And they're going to be having a meeting Saturday at the warehouse on the boardwalk. They're going to be having a meeting this Saturday talking about the pool and using the funds and hopefully getting donations to actually build a pool here. And I believe they're talking with a hotel that's coming in to see if they can use some of the land the hotel is using to build that pool. I don't know. I'm going to go to the meeting. I'll find out. But I'll tell you what I am against. I'm not against pools, but I am against taxes. I'm against tax increases. And I don't want to pay any more taxes for a pool. And I don't want old people and elderly who are on a fixed income to have their taxes raised to pay for a pool that they're not going to use. And once again, I'm not crapping all over the pool idea. I love the pool idea. I think it's going to be great if they bring a pool into Bandon. Wonderful. If it's paid for by volunteers and donations and they've got support other than the tax base. Because the tax base, if you vote on it, I can almost guarantee you're going to lose an election. And I'm going to probably go to that meeting on Saturday. It's Saturday, January 30th. I don't have a time here for you, but the only reason I'm talking about it is because the boiler went out at the Mingus Park. It's an outdoor pool, and if it's not heated, nobody in their right mind wants to go swimming in that. But on January 11th, the City of Coos Bay staff updated the Mingus Park Pool Board on the condition of the pool's boiler that has been out of commission for the past several weeks. The replacement cost is anticipated to be about $115,000. The pool board, in conjunction with the City of Coos Bay, will need to seek grants, donors to fund this capital improvement and bring the pool back online, which is a good thing. That's a good thing. They're going to get grants and donors to pay for this, not more property taxes. That's a wonderful thing. North Bend Pool is honoring Mingus Pool patrons, for which we all are grateful. However, the board decided, in light of the long-term closure, that it is only fair to our sister city to begin to pay for use of North Bend Pool beginning February 1st. The suspension of monthly and annual passes will be reinstated and extended once the Mingus Pool opens again. And if you have any questions, you can call the City of Coos Bay Department of Public Works Director Jennifer Wersing, maybe it's Wersing. Jennifer Wersing at the Coos Bay Department of Public Works, and she's the deputy at the Coos Bay Deputy Public Works Director, Jennifer. So contact her if you're interested in helping out the North Bend Pool, the Mingus Park Pool. If you got any ideas, maybe you have a good idea. I don't know, but that's interesting. To go back to national news, this is a state issue. Excuse me. FBI arrests a trans Nazi. Yeah, can you believe this? The FBI had to arrest a trans Nazi who, she was causing problems. Yes, causing all kinds of problems. And let's see if I got a picture of that. No, let's see. I think I have it here. Yes, absolutely. Here she is. FBI arrest Oregon trans Nazi who threatened blacks and Jews. Okay, you know, I don't have anything against trans people, but I do think they're mental. And I think this lady or guy or whatever the hell she is, I think she's mental. And for her to be threatening black and Jews while claiming to be part of the oppressed crowd, well, that takes a lot of balls, lady. Takes a lot of balls to do that, lady. I don't know who the hell you are, but they arrested this trans Nazi, Elizabeth Ballesteros West, 56 of Cottage Grove, has been taken into custody and is being held at the Lane County Jail. The FBI arrested a trans-identified Oregon woman who allegedly made a series of credible violent threats towards minority groups, including Jews, black people, and immigrants. Well, I guess she doesn't like immigrants. I don't know how this woman became a trans. She just doesn't sound right. She sounds like a complete Nazi. But Miss West, or Mr. West, I still haven't figured it out. She's 56 of Cottage Grove. Well, the court records show that authorities were first alerted to West in September when she had posted on a transgender women's support group page on Facebook claiming that she was being bullied by transphobic co-workers and saying that she had reached the end of her rope, or the end of my rope is the quote that she used. Wow. This transphobic nut, what a nutcase. But going after Jews and blacks, that's not a good thing. That's a bad thing, lady, if you are a lady. But West's social media post included a vow to carry out acts of violence and included photos of firearms per the affidavit. It also reported that West said in a post that she will have to go out in a blaze of glory and will have to do what I have to do and pray for the gods to forgive me. Yeah. No, she's not mentally ill, not at all. Just the fact that she's trans might prove that. But West, who has been diagnosed with multiple mental issues such as bipolar disorder, dissociative disorder, and post-traumatic stress disorder, issued further threats on X in December. Records show the affidavit states that West posted hatred against Jews, black people, and immigrants on X. She included photos of a Nazi flag and firearms in the post, which West indicated that she was pleased with how the Nazi regime herded Jews into gas chambers during the Holocaust. You know what this lady reminds me of? I don't know if you ever saw that movie, Never Too Young to Die, 1986. Yeah, this was a 1986 movie starring Gene Simmons from the Kiss rock band. And he played this character called Velvet Von Ragnar. And there was a part in the movie where he came out and he was singing this song where part of the line in the song was he's the only one who's man enough to be a woman like this. Yeah, that sounds like the Miss West. It's you see a resemblance. There's Miss West. There's Velvet Von Ragnar. Yeah, I think we got something there. I think if you ever never seen the movie Never Too Young to Die, well, it's an interesting one. It's with John Stamos and I forget the woman who played in it. But it's Gene Simmons as a transvestite. Can you imagine? Yeah, I bet you can, because we're in Oregon and that's the kind of crap that happens here. Affordable housing. They're going to increase our taxes and take away more of our property rights. We talked about this at 2:00 in the first hour with my guest, Marc Thornton, Dr. Marc Thornton. We were talking about property rights because that's what the government's for. The government should only be there to protect our property rights and to protect our person. Anything else the government does is usually a bunch of BS and creates more administrative bureaucracy that we just don't need. And really all we need is a justice system that actually works. But let's see, affordable housing push could lead to a tax hike frenzy. This was by William McKenzie from the Oregon Catalyst. I highly recommend the Oregon Catalyst. They're a great news source, but the government just can't seem to stop wanting more money. In a strange twist, now there's a move to make life less affordable for many Oregonians in order to promote affordable housing. Yes, that's how the government works. They're going to make life less affordable so that they can create more affordable housing. Yeah, right. They're about as crazy as that transvestite I just talked about. But the Oregon governor, Tina Kotek's Housing Production Advisory Council, has just submitted a 20-page draft report, the HPAC policy recommendations, on ideas on how to address the affordable housing crisis, and of course the ideas including raising more money. The Taxpayer Association of Oregon revealed in a report on January 10th, 2024, that this is what they're going to do. And remember, when voters passed Measure 50 in 1997, it introduced maximum assessed value, MAV, which acts as a cap on the growth of taxable assessed value for most property. MAV growth is limited to 3% per year. Combined with permanent tax rates, Measure 50 effectively limited tax increases except under specific circumstances. Kotek's Housing Production Advisory Council is proposing to raise that to 5%. So I guess they really don't care about democracy, because it was the voters who passed Measure 50, and now the governor is going to change Measure 50. Instead of 3% increases every year, we're going to get 5% increases. But own a vacation property in Bend? Kotek's Housing Production Advisory Council is proposing eliminating the mortgage interest deduction for a second house, i.e. abolishing the income tax deduction for interest paid on second homes. You like that? You like that? You got a vacation home in Bend? Well, you're going to have to bend over and pay it for that one. Yeah, you drive a gas car? You drive a gas car? Well, Kotek's Housing Production Advisory Council is proposing doubling fuel taxes. Isn't that nice? What a nice lady Kotek is. Yeah. On Section 7, page 16 and 17, it lists 5 suggestions to raise new revenue. Yeah, that's a good idea. And let's see. Generate new state level revenue to fund critical local infrastructure. New revenue generation to be limited on duration. Revenue source and annual revenue generated. Legislative revenue. Increase all personal income tax brackets by a 0.5 percentage point. 699 million. For some reason, I'm missing a page on this. But it also says implement 0.5% retail sales tax, which generate $501 million. Implement 0.5% payroll tax and double the fuel tax. The report also proposes reform Oregon's tax system to encourage development of needed housing and provide adequate revenue for local governments to support housing productions. Once again, they're going to create affordable housing by making your living costs less affordable. Yes, that's how crazy these people are. And that's a story. You can go to the Oregon Catalyst and you can read all the points on that. I don't know where the hell that second paper I had on that went, but that happens. It's live TV. Hey, we're still doing, we got a winner. We have a winner for today's round of Where's 3H Tree Service, and Nancy Brown was a successful winner for that. I know Nancy. Congratulations. I hope you enjoy the $50. Let's see. I got a message. Yeah, I got a message from Matt Holman, who said that somebody has won that prize. And let's see here. Yep, I'm going to go to that message from Matt Holman. Nancy Brown found us. So good for Nancy Brown. Congratulations. Hopefully they'll get a picture of that and we'll be able to post that on Facebook. Let's see. Before I get out of here, I want to tell you about some of the meetings that are going on in the county. And you know, the county, every 2 weeks, they have the commissioners meeting. It's the regular meeting. But my advice to you is, if you can't go to the regular meetings, it's probably better if you go to the work sessions, because there's a lot more action and information that you'll get from a work session than you'll ever get from a regular Coos County Board of Commissioners regular meeting. There's a lot more information that you'll get from the work session than you'll get by going to the regular meeting, because basically what they do, the cities and the counties, all these politicians, they make all of their decisions in the work sessions, and they have all the arguments and the debates in the work session. And then they come out and from the work session, they go to the regular meetings, and that's when they make the decision. So it's all choreographed. People go, wow, it's almost like they were talking to each other. And they did. They made the plan in the work session of how to vote at the regular meeting. Not all cities and counties do this. Not all of them have a law or an ordinance in the city or county that allows them the ability to vote in a work session. I believe some of the cities, they have to vote at a regular meeting. And usually the county, they can make a decision in the work session, but they prefer to do it at the regular meeting because they want to make it look like everyone was involved. Everyone was involved with this. But the fact is most people don't go to these work sessions because why? They happen during the day when you work, because you got to work to, pay for that affordable housing. But there is going to be a work session on Wednesday that I think you need to know about at 1:30 on January 24th, this Wednesday. They're going to have a budget prep meeting. Budget prep is where they get the budget committee together and they're getting ready to discuss the next year's budget. And I think this is something that we all need to start paying attention to, is how these cities and counties develop their budgets and what departments they put first, because there's a lot of departments out there that they're funding before they fund public safety. And it's just absolutely incredible, the priorities that they put on other departments. And part of it is because of the unions. The unions threaten to have strikes, or union employees are threatening to quit. And so they have to pay more attention to certain departments. And so that's happening Wednesday, January 24th at 1:30 in the Owen building. And then at 2 o'clock that same day, so if you go at 1:30, stick around for the 2 o'clock meeting, the 2 o'clock work session, because they're going to have a discussion on the sobering center. This is an idea that they've had for a couple of years. They were supposed to implement it in 6 to 8 months. Well, that was about 2 years ago. So now we're still on that 6 to 8 months thing, and they're already having a meeting on it. Woo, it's about time. And so they're going to be talking about having a sobering center in the jail where many of the beds are dedicated, or the jail cells are dedicated to people who are on drugs, who are on alcohol, who have committed crimes, which is about damn time. I don't know. In the old days, they didn't care what drug you were on. If you committed a crime, they just took your ass to jail. Not anymore. Not anymore. In fact, if you want to get out of going to the jail, just tell the police officer that you're on meth. Just tell them you're on meth, and they'll go, oh, well, the jail can't hold you because you're whacked out on meth. So this will stop that problem if they start having a sobering center. And that, once again, is on Wednesday, January 24th. Wednesday, January 24th, later that night at 6 p.m., there's going to be a discussion with city, county, and state elected officials on the impacts of Measure 110. And this is happening in City Hall. And I can tell you right now, I don't care what the politicians are promising. I doubt they're ever going to get rid of Measure 110. And you know why that is? 58% of the people voted for Measure 110. And I just don't think, maybe they did. We think 58% of the people voted for it, but with all that voter fraud that's going on. But even if there was voter fraud, I still think the majority of people did vote for Measure 110, probably because the government lied about what Measure 110 did and didn't do. But they are going to be having a discussion at the Coos Bay City Hall at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, January 24th. And then on Thursday, January 25th, at 3 p.m. back in the Owen building, they're going to be having a Zoom meeting on local alcohol and drug planning committee, which kind of sounds funny. Are they actually using the planning committee to plan how to use drugs and alcohol? I don't know. I guess I could teach that course. But that's some of the meetings that are happening. I want to thank all of you for tuning in. I want to thank Dr. Marc Thornton for coming on, talking about Measure 110 and our property rights. And I want to thank Ashley Hicks for taking a risk for coming on here. She's probably going to pay a penalty for being on my show because I'm such a radical, and a radical I am. And that's probably going to happen. But it's the chance you take in a free society. If you want a free society, then you got to risk risk sometimes getting in trouble with the establishment. And that's what I do here every week. And one of the reasons I'm able to do that is because I got great sponsors. I got sponsors such as 3H Tree Service. 3H Tree Service. Give them a call at 541-294-1800 if you need to take care of some of those radical trees out there. Matt Holman and his crew, they do a kick-ass job. They really know how to get in there, cut those trees down with surgical precision, and they do a great job cleaning up. Very, very good prices that they give on doing these jobs. And so I would give a call to 3H Tree Service, one of my excellent sponsors. But you would have to be excellent to be one of my sponsors. That's just one of my excellent sponsors. And of course, Tim over at Tom and Gigs. Go see Tim and crew. And if you got a car problem, a truck problem, you can see him. You need a tonneau cover. You need one of those remote control cars. Give a call to Tom and Gigs. They can take care of that because that's just what they do. And I want to thank you for tuning in. And I want to congratulate the winner of Where's 3H Tree Service, Nancy Brown. That was a good thing. It's always good to have a winner for that kind of stuff. And I think we're going to be heading out of here. Be leaving, and until next week. And I've got some big plans for next week. I haven't got any confirmation, so I don't want to tell you, so you get disappointed when they don't come through. But I got some big plans next week. You'll be very surprised who my guests are going to be, and I hope you tune in again. I'm going to try to keep on the same schedule. I'm going to try to make sure that I come in at 3 o'clock. The only reason I started at 2 o'clock today was that Dr. Thornton, he wasn't available after 3 o'clock. He had an appointment to do. Well, he's a doctor. That's just what they do. But it should be a good show next week. I appreciate you joining me for this week. And until next week, carry on, Coos County. Carry on.